Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and a very warm welcome to our shareholders, both online and here at Sasol Place today. I am Kenny Setson, the board chairman, and my fellow directors today sharing the stage with me, if I can introduce them. Firstly, Zanele Munakotla, Kananelo Maketa, Nonkululeko Manyeka, Tabiso Madiba, Talita Buikuzo. Thank you. I would also like to welcome the company secretary, Nontando Koza, as well as Chris Donnell, Senior Manager, Financial Accounting. In addition, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Vuyo Kahla. He is the Executive Director, Sasol Limited, as well as the Chair of the Board of Sasol South Africa. Also in our presence is Ms. Haulatwe, commonly known as Hau Mutuahaye. She is Vice President, Corporate Social Investment, as well as Sasol Foundation. In addition, I would also like to welcome Helene Joubert, Deputy Group Company Secretary, Sasol Limited. A very good welcome to all of you. Before we delve into the business of today, I would like to take a few moments for us to watch a short video on housekeeping and emergency procedures whilst we are here at Sasol Place today.
Welcome to Sasol Place, the global headquarters of South Africa's leading international integrated chemicals and energy company. At Sasol, we are committed to zero harm and ensuring the health and safety of our employees, service providers, contractors, and visitors. Please pay close attention to this short safety video, as we will highlight specific information on SHE and safety procedures applicable to our event facilities. You will be required to comply with the following in case of an emergency. If possible, gather your personal belongings if it is safe to do so. Remain calm, do not rush or panic, and only respond to instructions issued through the building's public address system. Sasol emergency marshals will assist in evacuating you to the nearest emergency assembly point. Do not use the elevators in case of an emergency. To ensure your safety and to avoid injury, please follow our 3-point contact principle at all times when ascending or descending the escalators or stairs. First contact, keep one foot grounded. Second contact, keep one hand on the handrail. And finally, third contact, keep your eyes on the direction of travel. In other words, keep your eyes on the path. At the assembly point, the area emergency controller will record attendance. Return to the event only once the all clear has been given by the area emergency controller. Please take note, bathrooms are indicated by these symbols. In order to avoid disruption during the event, please switch your mobile device to silent. Thank you for taking the time to watch the safety induction video. Enjoy the event at Sasol Place, and remember to stay alert and stay safe.
Thank you for the safety briefing. Following on from the safety briefing, I would like to call on Mr. Andre Vlade from Lumi, who will explain to you how you can pose your questions either verbally or in writing through the Sasol Khanyisa electronic meeting platform, or for those shareholders attending the meeting in person, how to ask verbal questions using the voting pad, which you have received on registration. The voting pads can be used as a microphone if you want to ask questions. Can I call Mr. Andre Vlada, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to you, and good morning to the board and to everybody here and present today. As the Chair said, for those of you in the room, you'll be able to ask verbal questions at the appropriate times. And please note that today is a hybrid meeting, so we do have participants that are online as well. Online participants will be able to ask questions both verbally as well as written. Alex at the back will be managing the Q&A portion of the meeting. So Alex will read out either the written question or call on whoever wishes to speak to ask the question. I'm going to start with those that are online. For those of you that are online and logged in as a shareholder, you will have either a messaging tab at the top of your screen that you can click on. You can then type out your question or your comment and then hit the arrow to the right of your message to send it through to us. If you wish to ask a verbal question from an online participant, you will click on the Request to Speak button that you'll find in your webcast or broadcast window. You'll see that your broadcast temporarily disappears. You'll then dial into one of our operators who will then place you into a queue. Please wait until Alex calls out your name, and only then will we unmute you to speak. For those of you in the room, you would have received a handset as well as a smart card at registration. Please just make sure that your smart card is inserted correctly into the top of the handset, and you should see a join queue message in the top left-hand corner of the screen. In order to join the queue, you'll press the microphone button on the left of the screen. It'll then ask you if you wish to join the queue, and you'll press the green button. It'll then tell you that you have now joined the queue. If you wish to leave the queue because somebody's already asked the question you wish to ask, or you don't want to ask your question or make your comment anymore, just press the microphone button again, and it'll ask you if you wish to leave the queue, and then you just press the green button to leave the queue. Please don't raise your hand. We are keeping track of the queue. You need to join the queue in order to ask a question. And same as the online participants, please wait for Alex to call out your name. When he does call out your name, we ask that you please stand so that the cameras in the room as well as the board can see who is asking the question. If you wouldn't mind stating your name, that would be nice, and then ask your question. But you need to wait for us to unmute your microphone on the handset. If you do struggle with anything with the handsets in the room, we do have Jonathan, that's on that side of the hall, and I think I have one or two other colleagues walking around, but just raise your handset and they'll be able to assist you. For those of you online, we do have a WhatsApp line as well as an email address that you can WhatsApp and email if you have any support queries. With regards to the voting, I'll handle that once the AGM itself starts. So I'll be back up here to explain that portion of it. And I'll hand back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Andre. As a note, we will present everything in English, and if you are attending the day's proceedings in person, you are welcome to listen to the proceedings in isiZulu, Sesotho, Sepedi, Sikonga, Tshivenḓa, isiXhosa, and Afrikaans. During registration, you would have received your interpretation receiver and handset, which was set to the language of your choice. As a reminder, at the end of the AGM, please return the handsets and the receivers. Consultants from the JSE investor services are available at the walk-in center, which is situated at the back of the venue, to assist you with any queries you may have in respect of your Sasol Khanyisa ordinary shares. We urge you to get in touch with them to ensure that all your contact details and banking details are up to date. During this shareholder feedback session, you will be presented with information on Sasol Khanyisa transaction and what it means to be a shareholder. You will also be exposed to various initiatives that form part of Sasol's corporate social investments, including the Sasol Foundation. A presentation will be made on how to become a supplier of Sasol, and lastly, the financial results of Sasol South Africa Limited will also be shared with you. Please note that questions will be dealt with during the AGM, at the end of the AGM, that is the question and answer session. Things have changed slightly for this session, that we request you to be patient with us. We'll deal with all questions at the end of the AGM, where we'll have a general session for all questions and answers. We really want to make sure you feel heard and we value you. So if you could just be patient with us with questions. We are obviously anticipating many questions, so we request that as a courtesy to all shareholders, you ensure that your questions are concise and all written questions are posted in English. We will do our best to ensure that everyone's questions are answered. We will be taking questions in batches of 6. This is simply to expedite the process. Myself, the chairpersons of the Audit and Social and Ethics Committees of the board, as well as the board company secretary, the financial manager, and members of Sasol management are available to answer any of your questions. Given the hybrid format of this meeting, Mr. Alex Anderson from Sasol's communication team will read out your written questions. As mentioned by Mr. Andre Vlada earlier, shareholders can also pose verbal questions. Mr. Anderson will read out the name of the shareholder who wishes to ask a question, and Mr. Vlada will activate that shareholder's microphone. Shareholders attending in person will use the queuing button to indicate they wish to ask a verbal question. As we delve into the presentations this morning, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker of the day, and that is Mr. Simon Mohapi. I'm sure some of you already know him. Simon will unpack the Sasol transaction and what it means to be a shareholder. It is my pleasure to I beg your pardon. Simon is uniquely qualified to unpack and simplify the Sasol Khanyisa transaction as a market commentator, an assessor, and facilitator. He has over 35 years of experience in the financial services industry on long-term insurance, stockbroking, investment consulting, and financial advisory services. He also provides market updates on retirement funds, on SABC platforms, as well as consumer education focusing on triple BEE share schemes. I will now call on Mr. Simon Mohapi to the stage.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, directors. Good morning, shareholders. It's my pleasure to present to you the shareholder education. And we're going to start with the group structure just as a reminder to say how are we positioned. And you will recall, just in terms of that group structure, right in the middle there, you have Sasol South Africa, and Sasol Limited owns 81.6% of Sasol South Africa. Then you have the Sasol Khanyisa Public, which is on the extreme right. They hold 9.2% of Sasol South Africa Khanyisa shares. Then you also have the Sasol Khanyisa Employee Share Ownership Plan. They also hold 9.2%. When you add up all of those, that gives you 100%. Just in terms of what are shares, what is the stock exchange, what can you expect from shares and the dividends, simply put, when you are a shareholder, you are a part owner of the company. Just like in the case of Sasol Khanyisa, you are allowed to be a shareholder and to share in the profits as well as the risks of the business. But remember, only Sasol Inzalo shareholders were eligible to receive Sasol Khanyisa ordinary and Sasol BEE ordinary shares, and this was in June 2018. The stock exchange, it's a marketplace. You have buyers and sellers who are able to trade their shares, and they do this in an orderly and regulated manner. Just in terms of Sasol ordinary shares, SOL, these are listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Shareholders can freely trade these shares. We're referring to everybody. Whites, blacks, coloreds, Indians, everybody can freely trade in the SOL shares. In as far as Sasol BEE ordinary shares, SOL B1, these are also listed on the empowerment segment of the JSE, and these shares are strictly traded between black people only. Sasol Khanyisa's shares cannot be traded until the empowerment period that ends in June 2028 and are therefore not listed on the JSE or the JSE empowerment segment. Just about Sasol Limited shares, shareholders can own SOL shares and SOL B shares in Sasol. Shareholders can obtain the trading value of the SOL shares or SOL B1 shares on the website www.sasol.com. So that's where you would receive that information. Just in terms of the number of shares that were allocated at the time, SOL B1 shares were provided to Sasol Khanyisa Public. As I said, that was in June 2018 as part of the Sasol Khanyisa transaction. When Sasol declares any and pays a dividend to shareholders, shareholders will receive these dividends as a shareholder of Sasol holding SOL and or SOL B1 shares. Just to recap on that, and very briefly, when we talk of SOL, that's the acronym for Sasol Ordinary Shares, and that is the code used on the stock exchange. SOL B1, it's Sasol BEE Ordinary Shares, and that's for black people. But they are both listed on the stock exchange, the one being under the empowerment segment. Sasol Khanyisa Public Shares, shareholders can own Sasol Khanyisa Ordinary Shares in Sasol Khanyisa Public. These shares cannot be traded during the 10-year empowerment period that ends in June 2028. There are restrictions there. The value of these shares is determined by an independent valuation performed annually. For every one Sasol Inzalo ordinary share that you hold, or you held rather, you received already one Sasol Khanyisa ordinary share. If you own Sasol Khanyisa ordinary shares and Sasol Khanyisa Public declares and pays a dividend to its shareholders, you will receive these dividends. And I'm aware that all of you have already received dividends in the recent past. Just in terms of the dividends, when a company makes a profit, it may pay its shareholders dividends. In our case, Khanyisa, 97.5% of dividends will be used to repay the Sasol vendor funding. Remember the rough funding arrangements there. The balance, which is the 2.5% trickle dividend that Sasol Khanyisa shareholder receives, That is what you received in the recent past. I must also mention that there are tax implications, and just in terms of the current tax legislation, your dividends will be subjected to a 20% tax, and the tax is payable to SARS by the individual or the entity. The relationship between Sasol Khanyisa and Sasol South Africa, I'm not going to go too much there. I've already alluded to the fact that the scheme was launched in June 2018, and it's a new broad-based black economic empowerment ownership, the structure known as Sasol Khanyisa transaction. It's a 10-year scheme, so we have to make sure that we go up to June 2028. When are we going to see the real empowerment? It will be achieved through Sasol Khanyisa transaction when the Sasol South Africa ordinary shares are exchanged for Sol B1 shares in Sasol Limited on a value-for-value basis at the end of the 10-year term, and black people will then own part of Sasol. It is through these shares that value is created in the hands of black people. I'm not going to go through the whole slide, but just to recap, you will recall that at the start of the scheme, there was vendor funding of 8.3 billion. That was before the interest, and that is why in 2019 you will see that figure is bloated to 8.7 billion. The beauty is throughout, there's been payments of interim dividends, final dividends, and special dividends, and when you look at 2023, that balance is down to 5.4 billion rand, which is good news because that loan is reducing. How can shareholders determine the value of their Sasol Khanyisa ordinary shares? Generally, the value of listed shares can be found in newspapers, share guide, and company website. In the case of Sasol Khanyisa ordinary shares, these cannot be traded. They are not tradable. They are not listed, and we have to wait until that empowerment term in 2028. The value of the Sasol Khanyisa ordinary shares is determined by an independent valuation performed annually. Under general, there are powers and restrictions to our directors here. And this we do through what you call the Memorandum of Incorporation, the MOI. What is it? The Memorandum of Incorporation is simply a document that talks to the rights, the responsibilities, and the duties of the directors and all other participants in the scheme, like in our case. But also remember, and I'm aware that the majority of you do belong to Stokvels. There are governance matters, and you do use a constitution that you need to listen to make sure that you follow the rules. So our directors also follow the rules. There are do's and don'ts. What is it that they are not supposed to do? They are restricted not to issue shares other than agreed. For instance, they cannot borrow funds or incur liabilities other than permitted in the MOI or invest in other entities. The other one, for instance, repurchase of shares. This is the buying back of the shares. They cannot do that. But they do have powers as per the MOI, Memorandum of Incorporation, and these include subscribe for shares in Sasol Khanyisa Funco and exercise any rights associated with the shares. They can also do the complying with statutory and common law obligations without incurring legal costs. Also, they can do appointments, they can appoint administrator for payment of distributions and appointing a transfer secretary like we have the JSE Investor Services Pty Limited. Deceased estates, you may pass on, or some have passed on as shareholders of Sasol Khanyisa. But what you need to understand is, in the South African context, when a person dies, his or her estate has to be wound up by an executor. This appointment is made either by the deceased in terms of a will or by the master of the High Court if there is no will, which means you die intestate. All property in the deceased name will form part of the deceased estate, and this will include both immovable and movable property such as shares in a company. In the case of Sasol Khanyisa, if you pass on, your shares will be transferred to your heirs, who must be black persons or black-controlled entity as defined in the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Codes. In the event of your death, the executor of your estate will need to inform the JSE Investor Services of your death. What are the requirements? A death certificate, executor appointment letter and the ID, executor's service bill, for an example, a City of Johannesburg statement, municipal statement, not older than 3 months. In some cases, you may even need the power of attorney where applicable. Estate-led bank details also not older than 3 months. A deceased estate, what happens when the trust is a shareholder, like we do have a trust who is a shareholder in Sasol Khanyisa. Where a trust is the shareholder of Sasol Khanyisa, ordinary shares, the beneficiaries in the trust would have submitted individual application forms to acquire these shares through the trust. Therefore, it is important for trust beneficiaries to have wills. If a beneficiary dies, the trustees who administer the trust must transfer the shares to an heir nominated by the beneficiary in a will. Otherwise, the rules of interstate succession will apply. And just in conclusion, be encouraged that we will be taking questions later on. And I'm sure, as the chairperson mentioned, there will be a number of areas that need to be clarified. We are available to assist in that case in as far as shareholder investor education is concerned and other matters. Technically, the chairperson has already mentioned that they are available to assist. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Simon. Our next speaker is Ms. Shareholder Motuahaya, Vice President, Corporate Social Investment and Sasol Foundation. Hau, as she's commonly known, has a passion in youth empowerment and rural development. Her programs focus on ways to alleviate the plight related to unemployment and skills shortages, which are linked strongly to the development of women of all ages. These development programs are underpinned by innovative enterprise development support models. Hau will provide you with information on social impact, the focus areas, and what Sasol does in communities. She will also be outlining key highlights of the year from all these focus areas and how communities benefit from Sasol's programs. Shareholders will also be provided with information on how their children can benefit from Sasol Foundation. Let's welcome Hau to the stage, please.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to everybody. Good morning to the Board of Trustees and all those who are present today. As the Chairperson stated, my name is Shareholder Motuahaya, and I'm the Vice President for Corporate Social Investment in South Africa, as well as being in charge of the Sasol Foundation. From a Sasol perspective, our key aim in terms of our promise to society is to ensure that we deliver social impact programs that respond to the needs of society, and that our interventions create shared value along the quantum of Sasol's value chain and ecosystem. And lastly, one of our great intents as we head into future Sasol is to ensure a just and responsible transition aligned to the future low carbon economy. And ultimately, all of this results in our promise to society, which is to be a catalyst for positive change, driving shared socioeconomic value. We have a very deliberate approach in terms of our social investments and what we deliver to our communities. And what we ultimately want to ensure is that our investment results in enhanced economic participation that contributes to the growth and improved quality of life within our operating geographies, as well as our fence-line communities. Our social investment approach is brought to life through a multi-pronged, multi-year methodology to ensure that we respond to the priorities of our fence-line communities. And we do this to ensure impactful and relevant programs are delivered within these fence-line communities and create shared value amongst all stakeholders. We do this by intersecting Sasol's intent with that of our communities as well as national and local priorities in our operating geographies. From a focus perspective, we focus on five key areas from a CSI perspective. Jabulile Khatibe, who's going to come on after me, will talk about the economic inclusion component. But from our side, we focus on community environment projects, ensuring that we're supporting the company in terms of creating awareness and supporting our communities to enhance quality of life within our fenceline communities. Secondly, we look to enhance access to quality education through the Sasol Foundation. Thirdly, we have a program which we call Bridge to Work, which is really our empowerment program, which is geared towards creating economic opportunities for our fenceland communities to be able to participate within the economy of South Africa. And then on the fourth focus area that we have is community health and service infrastructure. And through these programs, we really look to ensure that we are working with our local municipalities and local government to ensure improved quality of life. We focus on projects such as water, sanitation, roads, energy, access to energy, and we do that, as I indicated, in partnership with our fenceline or our local municipalities and district municipalities. Lastly, Sasol for Good is our employee advocacy program, and it's how we enable the Sasol employees to be able to be a force for good within our communities. In the last financial year, in total, across the globe, we spent roughly about 857 million across all of these focus areas. In South Africa particularly, which is where our largest investment is, we have invested we've invested over 680 million rand, and this is across the quantum of all of the programs. If we break down that 857 million, you will see that our largest investment is within education, because we realize that there's a very key foundational element in education. And in South Africa, just to give you a few examples, over 270 ECD centers have benefited from Sasol support, impacting over 954 practitioners and over 15,000 children across our fenceline communities. We have cumulatively, through the years since the Sasol Foundation was established, donated 19 mobile science labs to support science education since 2014 to universities, science centers, and schools. We have over 4,800 learners that participated in our various programs. This is followed closely by our investment in Bridge to Work programs. Under Bridge to Work, our most successful program is our farmer development program, wherein we have successfully trained over 164 people in agricultural skills, including livestock, vegetable, and poultry production. And these are only just some of the highlights that I'm sharing with you. Currently, as we speak, over 100 young people are involved in various disciplines that relate to the digital economy that is evolving as a key job creator within our fenceline communities. And they will be graduating in the next year. These are just some of the programs that we put in place to ensure that our young people, and specifically those that are not in education, employment, or training, are able to access economic opportunities by closing the critical skills gap between skills and the ability to participate within this economy. This spend is followed by what we invest in terms of our community service infrastructure, community health, and community service infrastructure. And over 1.6 million young people were reached through our HIV/AIDS education and awareness campaign, which we implemented in the Durban South Basin in KwaZulu-Natal. We've also built and repaired water and sanitation infrastructure in flood-affected schools in KwaZulu-Natal. And as I indicated, I'm just going to give you a couple of highlights around what it is that we do. From an environment and biodiversity perspective, we've spent roughly around 13 million rand, and through that, we've reached over 3,700 households through house-to-house education and awareness. We have planted over 1,300 speckworm plants and 200 indigenous trees and 6 fruit trees in the areas of Leandra, Kinross, Bethal, and Charles Cilliers. And lastly, through our Sasol for Good program, over 600 employees, including the Sasol Group CEO and other group executives, participated in our Nelson Mandela Day event, packing over 121,000 meals, which were distributed to the needy in early childhood education development centers across our fence-line communities. And really, I'm just sharing some of these highlights. You can read all of this when the Sasol in Society book report comes out later on towards the end of this year. And I really want to direct your attention to the Sasol video. But before that, I know the chairman did raise how do Sasol Khanyisa shareholders benefit from the Sasol Foundation. We have a specific allocation that is allocated to the children of Khanyisa shareholders to apply for bursaries under the Sasol Foundation, and we will share. These are shared in the question and answers that are available on the Sasol Khanyisa site and should be made available to you by Investor Relations. Thank you so much for the time.
At Sasol, we use our stature in the industry to be a force for good. This is expressed in our company's strategy and focus on people, planet, and profit, fulfilling our purpose of innovating for a better world. As a promise to society, we want our work to be a catalyst for positive socio-economic change, driving shared value creation for our communities as well as broader stakeholders, supported by our values of care and inclusion. Investing in the future of our children through education remains the cornerstone and foundation of any thriving economy, and we therefore aim to grow human potential in the fields of engineering, science and technology. This ambition is supported by a bold strategy to invest in programs that enable access to quality education. This year alone, we have supported 270 early childhood development centers and 964 practitioners, and more than 15,000 children under the age of 6 have benefited from our early childhood education program in South Africa. All-inclusive bursaries were awarded to 60 matriculants who now have the opportunity to pursue degrees in engineering, science, technology and arts. Scholarships were awarded to deserving young people to study towards their honors, masters and doctoral qualifications in sustainable research. Sasol's foundation has donated 19 mobile science laboratories to universities, science centers and schools since 2014. Many of these mobile labs are in remote and rural areas. In Mozambique, 1,200 science kits and 400 desks were donated to several schools. In North America, over 500 grade 2 to 5 students were engaged through the Chemical Education Foundation. Nokwazi Carol Mahlangu from Bethal is currently a third-year university student who received a bursary from Sasol to study chemical engineering at the University of Pretoria. Here's her story.
My name is Nogazikaro Mahlangu from Petal, from the governing Bega municipality. I'm currently doing my third year in chemical engineering at the University of Pretoria. I've benefited in many ways with the Sasol Foundation bursary. University is very stressful, so the foundation have provided psychologists for us. The psychologists have reduced my stress levels, have helped me focus, and my mental health has always been taken care of at all times. Once I finish my studies, I'd like to work for a company like Sasol.
A year ago, Sasol launched the Bridge to Work Employability Program to narrow the skills gaps and create opportunities for the most vulnerable in our society. With a particular focus on the youth and unemployed women in our communities, the program serves as a beacon of hope to ignite economic activity in our fence-line communities. The project's successes include the training and mentoring of 164 emerging farmers under their Ipepe program, as well as 42 young people who are now qualified structural welders, while another 12 have completed a tungsten inert gas module. In Mozambique, 500 beneficiaries were trained in entrepreneurship, with 250 receiving funding for new businesses. In North America, we supported over 10 local businesses in successfully completing a development program, resulting in the acquisition of $40,000 in business grants. At Sasol, we also focus on contributing in various other areas. In collaboration with local municipalities, we contribute to the provision of access to community health and service infrastructure by repairing roads, building water, sanitation and electricity infrastructure to support the well-being of our communities. We have spent over 400 million rand in the last 3 years to support an enhanced quality of life in our communities in South Africa and Mozambique. Since 2022, we have planted over 12,000 trees in our communities across the globe and rehabilitated 180 illegal dumps, resulting in over 120,000 tons of waste being deviated from landfills. Sasol for Good, our global employee volunteering program, is an example of our values in action. Over the last year, more than 280 employees in South Africa have contributed over 1.2 million rand to 110 organizations. In North America, $100,000 in charitable contributions was donated through Sasol's employee matching contributions. Driving social value underpins our ongoing efforts as we work collaboratively with our partners and key stakeholders to be a force for good to positively impact our society. For more information, visit www.sasol.com.
Thank you, Khao. Can we give her a round of applause? I think that is very impressive. Yeah. As a blue chip company, I mean, one understands why Sasol has to do the work it does. The depth, the breadth, and the diversity of support it offers its communities. So thank you, Sasol. I must just mention too, the social impact stand is in the refreshment area. So Khao and her team will be available for further inquiries and sharing of information. So please do visit the stand, and you'll obtain further information. I would now like to welcome our next speaker, that is Ms. Jabulile Ratsibe, who heads up Sasol's Enterprise Supplier Development, commonly known as ESD. She will share with us today the supplier journey that you need to embark on at Sasol. Welcome, Jabulile.
The Chair, Board of Directors, Sasol executives and management, and all the Sasol Khanyisa shareholders, good morning. My name is Jabulile Ratsibe. I'm the head of Enterprise and Supplier Development. Today, I'm going to be taking you through a journey in terms of those that would like to participate as suppliers to Sasol. If we may start with our transformation journey. In 2018, Sasol took a decision to relook at how we can drive inclusion of those that were previously not participating effectively in our supply chains. So we started a strategy of focusing centered on connecting and inclusion. We find, connect, and develop new small businesses. We embrace smaller suppliers and drive supply chain integration. And we also look at our existing supplier base and ensure that we transform by engaging with our existing suppliers to ensure that they also embrace the businesses in our various environments. We have devised a policy to look at how we implement this particular strategy. I'm not going to go through the details around what the policy entails, as you can read it at our Sasol website. But in essence, what we are doing is we have recognized that it is important for us to look at how do we develop small businesses for them to be able to participate in our supply chain through interventions that are talking to addressing the challenges that they may be experiencing. We also drive localization in our communities, and we have specific strategies that are focused on the businesses that are in the areas that are around us. We have statistics tell us that the unemployment rate in the areas around Sasolburg and Secunda are higher than those that are at the national level. This means that we have to, as a priority, look at what we do for our fence-line communities. We also implement subcontracting opportunities for those businesses that may not be able to effectively take part in our supply chain processes because they have not had the opportunity to experience, or rather to deploy their services at a scale that is required at our plants. We publish our opportunities on a platform that makes it visible for all of those that may not be well-versed in terms of how to participate in our supply chain. So I am going to talk about how do we become a supplier to Sasol, whether you are a small business or whether you are a large business. For the small businesses, we have a platform that is called Linkage that suppliers can register on. It is an open system that at any given point you may request a link to be able to participate in the platform. For large enterprises, we are running a managed process on a needs basis. The reason for this is to ensure that we actually are responding to the supplier requirements. In the past, we had an open vendor application system, which led to a number of unattended suppliers that wanted to participate in our supply chain, but could not because there were no available opportunities. We had about 4,000 of those suppliers that we could not respond to, and they were not in a position to know as to whether they are potentially going to be suppliers or not. This led to us then taking an approach of having a managed vendor application process to ensure that all the suppliers have got a sense in terms of where they are in the process. In terms of the bidding, often we have a question that comes around, how does one know when opportunities are available? For the small businesses, the opportunities have become visible on our linkage platform. But for the large enterprises, they have got to wait for those opportunities to become available, and we periodically open up the platform or our Ariba system to make sure that those suppliers that can participate in the identified scope can basically indicate their interest, and they would then be considered in our bidding process if they do qualify. I think it's important to note that before one qualifies as a supplier, unlike what you would have in some of the systems, we have to make sure that you can be able to provide the goods and the services at the quality that is required, and therefore we have to take you through an accreditation process. I am going to play a video that explains how the linkage platform works. If you may please bear with us, it's a little bit of a long video, but it is quite critical because it does not only explain the advantages of being part of the system, but it also explains the process that one goes through. So if we can just play the linkage video.
Find Sasol procurement opportunities. Let Sasol opportunities find you. At Sasol, we are focused on achieving sustainable economic growth and inclusion for the communities in which we operate. We support the growth of the small business sector in order to foster economically thriving and sustainable fence-line communities through the localization and transformation of our supply chain. To foster a transparent relationship between Sasol and its SMEs, we have introduced Linkage, a cloud-based platform that makes it simpler for Sasol and SMEs to do business together. We have improved our processes to make it simpler and faster for SMEs to be onboarded, integrated, and included into our value chain. Linkage enables Sasol to widen its SME reach. It makes qualifying SMEs more visible than ever before, and it creates visibility of procurement and development opportunities. You haven't registered on Linkage yet? This is why you should. It makes SMEs more visible to buyers. It provides SMEs with a view of their level of readiness to access procurement opportunities. It enables SMEs to view and understand the mandatory requirements for procurement. It guides SMEs on documents to collate in preparation for integration into Sasol's SAP Ariba system. It prompts SMEs to keep their compliance documentation up to date. As an SME, what does Linkage offer you? You can get an understanding of your procurement readiness. You can participate in development and funding programs and move towards the ultimate goal of platinum grading. You can monitor your development progress in real time. You can easily communicate with the procurement and the ESD function. What is supplier grading and what does it mean for you? Once you have registered and submitted the required company documents, you can be automatically graded. Based on your level of compliance, you can achieve blue, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, or platinum plus grading. Businesses that achieve grading levels blue to gold are eligible for development towards identified opportunities, where Sasol Enterprise and Supplier Development Department can support you to become procurement ready. If you achieve platinum or platinum plus status, you are procurement ready, and your business offerings will be made visible to Sasol buyers, and you can respond to advertised opportunities. Here's how your small business can go from Linkage to PO. First, register on Linkage and submit all your company information. You will then undergo a supplier grading process. Once you are procurement ready, Sasol buyers can invite you to participate in opportunities. And as a Platinum SME, you can show interest in advertised opportunities. If you apply, you will be assessed for opportunity fit, and if you are eligible to proceed, and we hope you are, you will be invited to SAP Ariba to register as a supplier and be accredited. Once you have received supplier accreditation, you can now transact with Sasol and apply for more procurement opportunities. For SMEs, the registration process is easy. You will be provided with a link to register on the Linkage Sasol subdomain. Once you have completed your profile registration and submitted the required documentation, your company information will be verified and graded. You will now be set up for inclusion into the Sasol supply chain. This efficient and integrated approach will advance Sasol's continuous development towards a transformed and inclusive supplier base across our supply chain and enhance the tangible upliftment of SMEs, making it easier for small businesses to evolve with Sasol. Have you registered on Linkage yet? What are you waiting for? Find Sasol procurement opportunities. Let Sasol opportunities find you.
Important to note is that we have two different types of opportunities. There are opportunities for those businesses that are ready to transact with us, and we call those procurement opportunities. There are also opportunities for those businesses that are not yet ready to transact with us, which we call development opportunities. We set aside opportunities both from a procurement as well as a development perspective. It is important that you, as you are in the platform, you understand as to which opportunities you would like to access. Often we hear people saying that they cannot see the opportunities that pertains to their environment. It is important to note that if your business is not yet platinum or platinum plus, you will not be able to participate in procurement opportunities, but rather you need to wait for development opportunities that pertain to your scope to be available, and you will then be developed by the enterprise and supplier development team. So development opportunities are from blue, bronze, silver, and gold, and the procurement opportunities are for businesses that are platinum or platinum plus, depending on the scopes of those particular that those businesses would like to participate in. And obviously, if the businesses have got to provide services on site or are executing complex scope, we expect them to be platinum plus. So in terms of those businesses then that are looking for development support or that would like to participate in development opportunities, we expect them to be 51% Black owned and above, to have a turnover of less than 50 million. They must be registered with the CIPC, must be tax registered, and must be operating for at least 6 months. And they must have a turnover that substantiates that the business has been operating. So to just have a business that is registered, that is not yet trading, unfortunately would mean that you will not be able to qualify for development opportunities. In terms of the support that is available, we do recognize that there is extensive support that is required for various types of businesses, and we also recognize that it is not a one-size-fits-all. So different businesses have got different support requirements at different points in their growth phase. So we offer different support interventions, starting from access to markets, which we do through the linkage platform, business and leadership support, technical capability building. We do recognize that in certain industries there are technical requirements from an accreditation point of view, and we do provide the necessary support for the businesses to be accredited. We offer access to business infrastructure. We have a center in Sasolburg, which is an incubation facility. We also have a center in Secunda where one can be able to participate, we can be able to access required technology. Often people will say that we do not have computers. How do you expect to transact with us? Support is available in both centers. We do offer access to finance, as well as we also offer a network, partnership, access to our partnership network. At a very high level, I would like to touch on what funding support is available. Often small businesses tell us that they are not able to participate in opportunities due to the lack of funding. Firstly, for those businesses that are not yet part of our supply chain, we do offer grant funding up to 100,000. And this funding is specifically supposed to be used for acquiring tools, equipment, technical information, technical accreditation, as well as the relevant softwares that could be that pertain to their industries. And for those businesses that are already a part of our supply chain, we do offer loans, and these loans tend to be very beneficial as we offer prime-less. For the businesses that have got POs, we do offer PO funding up to 5 million at interest-free loans. We do understand that the cost of actually accessing finance in the country is also quite a high cost, hence we offer PO funding at no interest, as well as for low-value loans that are up to 2 million. We have various tailored financial solutions starting from women empowerment finance, township development finance, transporter development finance, as well as those that would like to acquire our fuel stations can be able to be supported to buy the land as well as they build the station. We recognize that once people have been supported, they do need to be sustainable. Hence, we offer the post-investment support by ways of mentorship and advisory boards, compliance support from SARS, CIPC, as well as annual financial statements. We do offer business marketing support because we believe that it is important that those businesses that are operating do not only have a dependency on our own company, but are actually able to participate and bid for work in other companies. This obviously is quite beneficial to SMEs, whether you're looking at it from a competitive interest rates point of view, ease of access in terms of the cash flow, and also the reduced indebtedness in terms of the entities. I am going to just highlight at a very high level, because we're out of time, in terms of what support is offered in terms of the current programs. We have Women Center program because we do understand the challenges that are faced by women, not only in this country, but globally. We have programs that are specifically focused to be able to support women to participate in those industries that are often very difficult to support. These start from women in engineering programs, women in mining programs. We also have specific summits that are focused on women. We have programs that are supporting women in the transport space, as well as those that would like to acquire our fuel stations. We also have specific projects that are sustainability-related projects that also talk to our drive towards discharging our responsibilities from an SDG perspective. We don't only have women that are programs that are gender focused, but we also recognize that those that are in our townships need the necessary support. We've had programs where we have assisted SMEs, specifically in areas like Ekandastria, with containers for them to be able to provide support to as business centers in those various areas. We have specific set-asides for SMEs that are in our townships for them to be able to participate in both procurement and development opportunities. And also we have some programs that are focused on the youth in the different environments to make sure that they can be able to participate in opportunities that are available within our business. At a very high level, we have had spent up to 38 in the previous year, 38.8 million in SME development. We have assisted 191 small businesses. We've had different summits to make sure that SMEs can connect and also get industry information to ensure that their businesses are more have got access to relevant information that is, especially as you look at the sustainability drive that we have or the focus on decarbonization. We also we understand that SMEs need to have some skills, and we have various SME training sessions to ensure that we increase the capability of those that are running the businesses. We have created more than 201 jobs, have created market access opportunities through the exhibitions and conferences. And also we have provided grant funding of 924,000 to 11 beneficiaries. Our loan book is actually quite healthy at 641 million with 47 beneficiaries on our loan book, and we have created 859 jobs through our funding support. And I think more importantly, we are in the country where it is actually quite costly to access funding. As I've mentioned before, we've assisted SMEs in the previous year to save 23.7 million in interest rates through the interest rates that we offer. I would like to encourage you, if you have any more questions, to visit our stall, and we'll be able to clarify further how we can partner with you and provide the necessary support. Thank you.
Thank you, Jabulile. That was quite a lot of information. It's amazing how much Sasol does when it comes to supporting frontline communities and small business generally. So I know it's a lot of information, but I must just remind you, there is a ESD stand. The team will be out there, so please engage them. This is the opportunity to do so. This is the only forum you as shareholders can engage the company and get to understand the affairs of the company. So I truly and honestly encourage you to engage the company, not on social media, but you have the presence here today. My last speaker is Mr. Vuyo Kahla. That's the Executive Director, Sasol Limited, as well as the Chairman of Sasol South Africa Limited. It is an honor to have him here because why are we here? It's because we are shareholders in Sasol South Africa. So it's a privilege to have him here to share with us key financial highlights of how the business has performed. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board, shareholders, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for the opportunity to say a few words at this Sasol Khanyisa AGM. I am Vuyo Kahla, as introduced. I'm the Executive Vice President for Strategy, Sustainability and Integrated Services, and I also serve as an Executive Director of Sasol Limited, as well as the Chairman of Sasol South Africa Limited. It's my pleasure to take you through the salient financial performance features of Sasol South Africa, which is the underlying investment of Sasol Khanyisa. Briefly, these are the key points that I will be sharing with you today. We will briefly contextualize Sasol South Africa's operations within the overall structure of Sasol Limited. I will also then take you through the financial performance highlights of Sasol South Africa, known sometimes as SSA, for the 2023 financial year. I will explain the major factors that affect the performance of SSA. As you already heard earlier, Sasol Limited is a global integrated chemicals and energy company proudly based here in Johannesburg in South Africa. And Sasol South Africa Limited is a subsidiary of Sasol Limited and is Sasol's largest operating entity. Sasol South Africa, together with our operations around the world, is instrumental in enabling Sasol Limited as the holding company to create value for all its stakeholders. SSA houses most of South Africa's Sasol operations and businesses, which are the cash generative assets within SSA. These businesses include the Secunda operations, Sasolburg and Ekindustria operations, Sasol Gas, which also connects with Romco, which is the Republic of Mozambique pipeline company. Our satellite operations, we also cover group technology, as well as indicated, I've said, also on gas. Both the Sasolburg and Secunda facilities are themselves world-class industrial plants. Looking at our operating environment, there are a number of factors that pose a near-term challenges to our business. These include global economic volatility, and in South Africa specifically, an uncertain regulatory environment, as well as other business challenges. Other countries around the world are also working on policies and regulations that have far-reaching implications for Sasol, as well as for South Africa in general. We would hear in respect of the United States reference to the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, which provides incentives to green the economic landscape in the United States, as well, of course, when you're talking in the EU space, reference to the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which essentially provides some tax penalties in respect of products moving into the EU that have a high carbon content. The legal and regulatory environment in South Africa also includes a range of complexities, such as the determination of the maximum gas price, the environmental compliance roadmap, fuel blending mandates, as well as carbon tax. Sasol continues to engage on each of these areas on a proactive basis with the objective of finding win-win solutions both for ourselves as well as for our many stakeholders. We continue to engage also with the National Energy Regulator, NERSA, in respect of the facilitation of the approval of the maximum gas price for FY23 as well as FY24. As you are aware, we have not been allowed to increase prices since financial year 22, despite the impact of rising inflation, higher capital costs, as well as commodity price increases. Challenges also exist around renewable energy investments, where there is risk of these being undermined by grid allocation uncertainty. Constrained grid capacity in certain resource-rich provinces in South Africa is making it increasingly difficult to bring new renewable energy projects online. Investments in upgrades of the transmission networks will be critical to alleviate this risk. In terms of other business impediments, many of these are well known, such as persistent load shedding, which affects many of us here in South Africa, as well as other infrastructure constraints, in particular, challenges in respect of the performance of the national provider of rail, port, and pipeline logistics, Transnet. Although these particular aspects of uncertainty exist, and they are worth mentioning, it is important to reiterate that we have constructive dialogue around these issues across a range of stakeholders, and we are progressing well in making our business more resilient. Looking at SSA's financial performance, Sasol's overall financial results for the year ended 30 June 2023 were impacted by the volatile global economic landscape, as I've outlined earlier. The underperformance of state-owned enterprises in South Africa continue to negatively impact both our energy and chemical businesses. This impact was to an extent offset by a weakening of the US dollar exchange rate. Despite the challenges, SSA generated 133.5 billion rand in revenue, while we invested 16.6 billion in capital expenditure to ensure the ongoing safe and stable operations. Given the drop in oil and chemical prices, the company value has fallen to 38.3 billion. I will explain further the major factors that impact this value. For FY23, SSA declared total dividends of 18 billion rand, of which more than 41 million was declared to Sasol Khanyisa Public. An important context to Sasol South Africa's financial performance is considering the impact of Sasol Limited's performance on SSA. To start with, some specifics on the impact of the macro environment. After support from a rising oil price in the first half, we're negatively impacted, as I've indicated earlier, by a softening of the oil price in the second half of the year, resulting in an overall decrease of 5% when compared to the prior financial year. And this was offset by the rand weakening 17% to an average of 17 rand and 77 cents to the US dollar. Looking ahead, we expect the uncertain global environment to continue to weigh on prices and demand in the short to medium term, with continued volatility in oil prices, as well as weak margins for refined products and chemicals. We anticipate ongoing high inflation, which requires us to carefully manage our costs, as well as have robust capital strategies. Turning now to factors that have impacted our business in the past year, the development of our emissions reduction roadmap, which we sometimes refer to as the ERR, demonstrates our commitment to sustainability and guides our path to achieve our 2030 greenhouse gas emission reduction targets, as well as compliance with our air quality requirements. We need to continue to evaluate and refine our roadmap, ensuring we follow a measured and balanced approach to balance the people, planet, and profit impact of our transition. With this in mind, we have revised our approach that was dependent on gas to restore Secunda operations volumes back to higher historical levels. We have reassessed the affordability associated with obtaining additional gas, and as such, incorporated lower production volumes post-2030. This adjustment, together with other factors such as the current lower volume output of Secunda operations, the higher cost of capital, the higher feedstock costs, and changes in capital assumptions resulted in the impairment of the Secunda Liquid Fuels Refinery cash generating unit of approximately 35.3 billion rand in respect of the Sasol Group and 16.8 billion rand for Sasol South Africa. It is important to note that the Secunda chemical cash generating units are demonstrating resilience with no impairment incurred due to the production of higher value products. We are diligently evaluating and progressing various technology and feedstock solutions that could potentially aid in partially restoring our production volumes. However, it's important to note that the majority of these solutions need to be progressed before they can be considered to have an impact in respect of the impairment assessment. On carbon tax, it's important to emphasize again that Sasol supports a carbon tax as a measure to achieve effective decarbonization. The carbon tax rate, however, must be at a level that enables decarbonization while not prematurely shutting down business. There should be accompanying incentives to encourage uptake of low-carbon technologies and development of new green sectors. I've made example, for example, in places like the US, around the IRA, as well as in the EU, of course, you've got the Fit for 55. All of those initiatives enable the speeding up of the decarbonization process. The issue of air quality has been an important factor raised in respect of Sasol. Looking at environmental compliance in July 23, we communicated that Sasol's application for an alternative emission load-based standard for sulfur dioxide from the Secunda boilers was declined by the National Air Quality Officer. Sasol has subsequently lodged an appeal of this decision with the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, and we are participating in a process for the consideration of this appeal. Our objective here is to implement our integrated emissions reduction roadmap that enables compliance in respect of air quality, whilst at the same time realizing our greenhouse gas reduction objectives. Sasol's Clause 12A application, in our view, is an appropriate legal mechanism on which to be regulated, and I would emphasize that we are not seeking to be exempted from compliance, regulation, or ambient air quality improvement. In fact, we believe that through our load-based approach, we are able to meet our obligations in respect of air quality, as well as equally address the greenhouse gas challenge, and do so in a way that also takes into account socio-economic impacts, as well as the health impacts in our societies. Sasol also continues to engage Transnet to find a path forward to our logistics challenges. We support them in the provision of a reliable rail service and a well-run port and pipeline operations. In addition, we are working with Transnet to address logistic challenges affecting us, particularly in respect of the availability of rolling stock and ensuring the uninterrupted operations of the crude oil pipeline that conveys crude from the coast to our refinery in Natref. I would now like to touch on how we are progressing our roadmap to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2030. Allow me to highlight some key milestones progress in the past year. We have signed power purchase agreements for renewable energy in excess of 600 megawatts for Secunda. I'm also pleased to say that the 69 megawatt Msenge Emoyeni Wind Farm is under construction in the Eastern Cape. We expect this to come online in 2024. In Sasolburg, we have commissioned a 3-megawatt solar farm adjacent to our operations. This project is to facilitate the production of green hydrogen at our Sasolburg operations. We are very proud to announce that Sasol produced its first green hydrogen in June during the commissioning phase of this plant. Once operational, the Msenge Wind Farm, together with the Sasolburg Solar Farm, will provide sufficient renewable power to commercialize green hydrogen in South Africa. This is a huge step forward in the energy transition, not just for Sasol, but also for South Africa. Sasol has communicated that we will continue to use gas as a transition energy source in the near term until sustainable sources of carbon become affordable. Our gas drilling campaign in Mozambique has become increasingly important to enable this transition. We have extended the peak life of the existing gas fields to 2028, giving us more feedstock flexibility up to 2030. The recent gas discovery in the PT5C block also has potential should this become a viable supply in the future, together with any other exploration prospects in southern Mozambique. The recent Kinetico gas discovery near Secunda also provides potential gas supply options, and we're engaging with them to understand this opportunity better. Looking at liquid fuels, our Natref refinery produces 10 ppm low sulfur diesel, and of course, we're proud to emphasize that Sasol was the first to market with this premium fuel some years ago. On our outlook, we remain committed to achieving our future Sasol ambitions as we highlight our priorities for the coming year. Our pathway to future Sasol is rooted in our reset, transition, and reinvent levers of the future Sasol strategy. The realities of the operational and business headwinds faced in the last year have impacted our performance in the reset phase of the journey. But we have responded by intensifying our efficiency and cost management initiatives to ensure we continue to be able to deliver on our strategy. The safety of our people remains a top priority. The pursuit of zero harm while maintaining safe and reliable operations is non-negotiable. There is more work to be done to refine some of the levers to 2030, to optimize capital spend, balance demand, and decarbonize sustainably. Sasol's roadmap development is underpinned by the principles of a just transition, taking into account the push and pull factors and the context of national circumstances in Southern Africa. Sasol's commitment to sustainability is unwavering. Our approach is holistic, where environmental, social, and economic aspects are integrated, balanced, and prioritized. Our goal is to continue being a force for good and positively impact our people, communities, and stakeholders throughout the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Vuyo. I think that was very insightful and informative. And you'll agree with me, shareholders, that despite all Sasol's headwinds that it faces, the business remains resilient and is strategically positioned to embrace the green economy. And I think that is the type of investment you're all interested in knowing that it has a future and that future is sustainable. So thank you very much for the presentation. We still have a few minutes before we start the AGM, so I'm not going to allow you to do anything else but to just be patient for the next 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll commence with the AGM. As I had mentioned earlier on, we're going to take all the questions at the end of the AGM, but questions relating to resolutions need to be tabled exclusively directed at the resolution. So if it's a resolution that you need to make a decision on, you must then post your question. But any other questions, please, let's have them at the end of the AGM. It doesn't need to be a question. This is your forum. It could even be an opinion. It can be your commentary. It could be your input. That is what we would like you to do. We want to make you feel that you are heard and valued. And this is the purpose of this gathering today. So, my colleagues, how many minutes do we have before we commence the AGM? 3. So I need to talk for another 3 minutes. Without opening up the question issue extensively, does anybody maybe perhaps wish to share anything on their mind that has emanated in this 3 minutes, that has emanated from the presentations you have heard? Just a quick one. We'll expand on it later. I see a hand.
Chair,
Yes,
we
sir.
have a shareholder who would like to ask a question. Mr. Michael Raboko.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. So, I think this is the first time that the Sasol Khanyisa is getting into the right way. So we are moving from red tape to yellow tape. So now, let me make an example. So now our beneficiaries, they can benefit from Sasol Khanyisa by getting bursaries. So before we are not allowed to benefit anything from Sasol except by getting the dividend. So now there are lots of opportunities like businesses, sponsorship, bursaries, and other things. So that means it's a great achievement. So you are now going somewhere. So thank you so much for that. But you still have some limitations in order to access some opportunities, because we have some silvers, gold, platinums, and other things. So those things, for myself, I hate them too much, because you characterize the people according to their standards. So instead of removing the silvers, the gold, the platinum, the other things like that, so try to be clear and then allow everyone to have opportunities without putting terms and conditions.
Yeah.
So,
Can I just intervene? If you have more questions, we'll deal with them later on. But can I respond to what you've already shared? And then we are going to start with the AGM. Would that be in order? Okay. Just on the access to Sasol bursary, that has always been available. And I think today you'll meet some of the people running the bursary scheme, and they will share with you what the requirements are. And we'll deal with that later on in the question and answer. And there is a stand where you can speak to Sasol executives about opportunities. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to start with the formal AGM. It is my pleasure, together with the board of Sasol Khanyisa, to welcome you to the 6th Annual General Meeting. This is your shareholders' meeting where you can have your say. We hope that we can clarify all matters needing clarity or explanation. For purposes of voting on resolutions as set out in the notice of the Annual General Meeting, I will ask Mr. Vlada to demonstrate the use of the voting keypad that you received when you registered. These keypads can also be used as microphones if you want to ask a question. Mr. Vlada will also provide guidance to those joining online on how to ask questions and how to vote. If you can come to stage, Mr. Vlada.
Thank you again, Chair, and once again, good morning to everybody present. As mentioned before, we are hosting this meeting as a hybrid meeting, so we do have participants online as well as participants in the room. I'm going to first deal with how voting will work. So for those participants that are in the room, at registration, you would have received a handset as well as a smart card. And currently on the screen, you'll see a list of resolutions. For those of you that are familiar with what a BlackBerry used to look like, you'll use the trackball in the middle to scroll up and down and start an ordinary resolution 1.1. Once it's highlighted, press the blue trackball. You'll then see the details of the resolution. So 1.1 is to re-elect directors. And to vote, you'll then just push the green button to vote and then press the number that you wish to vote. So 1 if you wish to vote in favor, 2 if you wish to vote against, and 3 if you wish to abstain. Once completed, you'll then click the green button again to move on to the next resolution, and you'll keep following that process until you've finished voting on all the resolutions. When you're finished, you should then have a list of the resolutions on your screen and how you voted for them. If you wish to change your mind, use the trackball, scroll to the resolution you want to change your mind on, click on it, and then re-enter your vote. Our system will take the last vote that you've entered. For those of you that are online, you'll see that you now have a voting tab. You'll have what looks like an electronic ballot form, which you can then select the same options to vote with. For each one, you'll see a vote received message as well as how you voted. If you wish to change your mind online, just click on the choice that you want to change to. Our system as well will take the last choice selected. Then moving on to Q&A. For those of you that are in the room, again, you have the handset. On the left-hand side, you'll see a microphone button. You'll press that button, and it'll ask you if you wish to join the queue. You'll then press the green button to accept joining the queue. You'll then see a message saying, "Join queue." Please wait until Alex or the chairman have called out your name. Please stand up at that point and then speak into the handset like you would any other microphone. So please don't hold it too far away and don't hold it right up against your face, but just sort of close enough to your face like a normal microphone. When you're done, we'll disable your specific microphone and Alex will call out the next person to speak. For those of you online, if you wish to ask a written question, you'll go to the messaging tab. You'll type out your message and you'll hit the send key on the right-hand side of that message. If you wish to ask a verbal question from the online participants, you'll click on the request to speak button that you'll find in your broadcast window. The broadcast will temporarily disappear while you dial into an operator. and then the operator will place you in the queue. And also, please wait until Alex calls out your name, at which point we will then unmute your microphone to be able to speak to the room. If you are struggling with anything in the room, please raise your keypad up, and one of my colleagues in the room will come around and assist you. For those online, there is the WhatsApp line as well as the email address that you can use for support. And with that, I'll hand back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Andre. Just to emphasize, if you experience any difficulties, we have online facilitators as well as ushers on the sides of the venue that you may request assistance from. Now, please allow me again to introduce my fellow directors, starting with Zanele Munakotla, Kananelo Maketa, Nonkululeko Manyeka, Tabiso Madiba, Talito Buikuzo. That's our directors. Also seated with them is Nontando Koza, Company Secretary, as well as Christo Nell, Senior Manager, Financial Accounting. So they will have all the answers you need to know today. And as well as Sasol management who are in the audience for any further questions you may have. Now, our first speaker today is Mr. Christo Nell. He will share with you Sasol Khanyisa Public's annual results for the year ending 30 June 2023. Christo, would you come forward?
Thank you, Chair, and the directors and shareholders for the opportunity to present the financial results for Sasol Khanyisa Public Group for the year ended 30 June 2023. It's important to note that together with the notice of the meeting, the financial statements for the year ended 30 June 2023 has been included for every participant's benefit. Note that these annual financial statements has been audited by the company's external auditors, which are PwC, and they have audited their unqualified audit opinion on these results. If I can first just stand still briefly on the statement of financial position, just to note that as at 30 June 2023, the company had 27.9 million rand in terms of cash and cash equivalents, which mainly relates to unclaimed dividends and also interest that was accrued on the bank balance over the period. Also note that other payables of 5.8 million rand is payable to the Sasol Khanyisa Warehousing Trust as at 30 June 2023. If we then move on to the statement of cash flows, important to note that dividends was received of approximately 2.3 billion rand during the financial year from Sasol South Africa, of which 2.2 billion rand has been repaid on the debt to Sasol Limited, and the remaining of the dividends received was paid out as a dividend to the participants, which equates to approximately 51.1 million rand. That is a brief summary in terms of the annual financial statements. Important to note as a subsequent event that just to highlight that as at 21 August 2023, Sasol South Africa declared a final dividend of 27.77 rands per ordinary share, to its shareholders, and also Sasol Khanyisa Public declared a final dividend for FY23 of 69 cents per ordinary share to its shareholders on 14 September 2023. Now those numbers will then only be included in the next financial year, which is the year ended 30 June 2024. If we can then move on to the salient features of the results. Important to note that the group's portion of the fair value of SSA is 2.4 billion from an IFRS perspective, as at 30 June 2023, when one do a fair value calculation thereof, which is basically the fair value of Sasol South Africa multiplied by the 9.19% interest that the entity holds in Sasol South Africa. Also note that the loan balance as at 30 June 2023 is 5.6 billion rand, which represents a decrease of approximately 1.7 billion rand from the previous financial year. And that's mainly due to interest on the debt of approximately 500 million rand, then being negated by repayments of 2.2 billion rand. Then, as I mentioned earlier, from a subsequent events perspective, dividends for the as a final dividend for the year ended 30 June 2023 of 69 cents per ordinary shares was declared by the company during October 2023. Important to note that dividends are being calculated from a Sasol South Africa's perspective on the free cash flows of the entity, which is in line with the dividend policy of Sasol South Africa. So it's then important to note that that the dividends being declared ultimately by Sasol Khanyisa Public is driven by SSA's ability to generate free cash flows. Then if we move on to the next slide with regards to the vendor funding, from a cumulative perspective, from the onset of the transaction, the initial funding in terms of the transaction equated to 8.3 billion rand at the start of the transaction. The cumulated interest, which is linked to the prime interest rate, times 75%, accrued over the period, currently equates 2.7 billion rand. And if one then negate the repayments to date of 5.4 billion rand, it ultimately gives us the final number of 5.6 billion rand outstanding debt as at 30 June 2023. Now that number one then needs to compare to the fair value of Sasol Khanyisa Public's interest in Sasol South Africa to understand or to ultimately calculate the net value in terms of the transaction. Then just to highlight that we did see a increase in the prime interest rate during the financial year. It increased from 6.19% to 8.81% effectively, which is basically an expression of 75% of the actual prime interest rate movement during the year impacting the debt. Then just as a last point, in terms of the way that the transaction is structured, with the transaction coming to an end in 2028, from a management perspective, we are eagerly tracking the debt repayments in terms of repayment thereof, which is basically then a function of the financial performance of Sasol South Africa during the period. With that, I conclude on the financial results for the year ended 30 June 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Christo. We'll now proceed with the business of the AGM as set out in the notice. I would like to welcome those shareholders who have just joined us. The notice and consolidated financial statements were sent to shareholders on the 29th September 2023. The constitution of the meeting. I'm comfortable that the notice of the meeting has been delivered to shareholders in accordance with the requirements of the Companies Act, that the electronic and physical attendance registers have been duly completed and verified, that the required quorum of shareholders is present, and that the proxies that have been handed in are in order. This meeting has therefore been properly constituted. Minutes. The minutes of the previous annual general meeting were approved by the Board of Directors and signed by me as a correct record of the proceedings on the 12th April 2023. These minutes are available for inspection today and will be made available upon request, either electronically or physically by appointment at our registered offices. Registration. The register of shareholders of the company is open for inspection, either electronically or physically at the offices of the Transfer Secretary, JSC Investor Services. Annual financial statements. The audited annual financial statements of the company and of Sasol Khanyisa Group for the year ending 30 June 2023, together with the reports of the directors, the audit committee, the external auditors, published on the 29th September 2023 and are available on the Sasol Khanyisa website. The report by the audit committee on how the committee discharged its duties in terms of the Companies Act is also included in the annual financial statement. Should you have any questions relating to the financial statement and the audit thereof, you may ask these. The chairman of the audit committee, Ms. Nonkululeko Manyeka, the financial manager, Mr. Christo Nel, and the auditors of the company, PwC, are available to respond to any questions. The report by the Social and Ethics Committee on how the committee discharged its duties in terms of the Companies Act has also been included, and Mr. Kananelo Maketa, the committee chair, is available to answer any questions or queries relating to or elaborate on any items contained in the report. Are there any questions on these reports?
Chair, there are currently no questions queued.
It should be a question relating to the reports. We'll deal with general questions at the end of this session. If you have a question relating to the reports, that will be welcome.
Chair, we have a question.
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
In the room from Mr. Michael Raboko.
Thank you so much, Chair. The minutes of AGM approval was approved by the Board of Management. So my question is, why not, I don't know what is in the, what you call it, the Constitution or the Sasol Khanyisa, but I was expecting that the minutes supposed to be approved by the shareholders. I don't know if my question is clear. So because you said the minutes of the AGM was approved by the Board of Management and also the chair, you signed in order to approve it. But my question or my doubt, why not approved by the shareholders? Thank you.
Yeah, just to explain that, and we can cover it even further in the question and answer session, and we can do that on a one-on-one basis. But to explain that we are your custodians. We bring together this meeting. We administer what transpires today. It's your meeting. So we need to accurately and correctly reflect the proceedings of this meeting. So we sign off on those minutes, but clearly we make them available to you so that it is reflected as a correct version of the proceedings. That is just how the process is run. But I'll also call on Notando if there's anything else you would like to add. Yeah. Huh?
Nothing at this stage, Chair.
Okay. But so can we further delve into that in the question and answer later on? Because I'm trying to just get to any other further questions. You have another question? Okay. Are there any other questions relating to the reports that I have just mentioned?
There are no other questions, Chair.
Or there aren't any further questions? Okay, I thought there was a question. I saw movement at the back. Sorry for that. So we will now go to the ordinary resolutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now proceed with those resolutions requiring shareholders' vote. For shareholders attending in person, use the voting keypads that were given to all shareholders entitled to vote at this meeting. If you are a shareholder attending online, please use the built-in voting platform. We will be voting by way of a poll on all the resolutions today. We will consider ordinary resolutions tabled at this meeting. Ordinary resolutions must be adopted with the support of at least 50% of the voting rights exercised on that resolution. We're going to start with ordinary resolution 1, directors. We start with the re-election of directors. We will vote on each director separately. As shareholders will be voting on election of the chairman of the board, I will ask the chairman of the audit committee to facilitate this portion of the AGM. So I'm going to ask Ms. Nonkululeko Manyika to facilitate this portion of the AGM.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Chair. As he'd indicated, I will be facilitating this portion of the AGM. The following directors who are eligible and have offered themselves for re-election in terms of the company's memorandum of incorporation retire by rotation, the board supports their re-election. I'll start off with Ms. Zanele Monagota. If you can raise your hand and wave to the crowd. Thank you. And Mr. Kedi Setson, our chair, if you can wave to the crowd. Thank you very much. Before we vote, are there any questions on the re-election of the directors retiring by rotation?
We have one question in the room. Madimecha Jacob Madue.
Okay, thank you, sir. You can proceed with your question.
Actually, the questions I'm having do not really relate to what you said. In fact, I pressed some few minutes back when the executive chair, Mr. Vuyo, was speaking, because I wanted to ask the question in regards to him.
Okay, we will...
So it is few minutes back.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I think it stayed on.
Okay, we will, if you can hold on to your question and ask it towards the end of the AGM, I'd appreciate it. Are there any other questions?
No further questions.
Thank Thank you. You can proceed to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Nonkululeko. You can vote at any time during these proceedings, and I will alert you when the polls will close. We are going now to ordinary resolution number 2, the appointment of KPMG Incorporated as independent auditors. The Audit Committee has nominated KPMG Incorporated for appointment as the independent auditors of the company and the group for the financial year ending 30 June 2024, to hold office until the next annual general meeting. The Audit Committee is satisfied that the appointment of KPMG complies with the applicable regulatory requirements. As you would know, and perhaps just to elaborate on this, audit firms go through a rotation practice, which is a standard practice embraced by the audit profession. So it's not exclusive to Sasol or Sasol Khanyisa. So there has been a rotation that is about to happen, where KPMG has been decided upon by Sasol Limited's Audit Committee, which in turn refers the recommendation to Sasol Limited, and in turn, Limited presents it to its shareholders. So that's how the process works. And because we are part of the group, and our MOI enjoins us that we accept the group auditors, that is how that decision is arrived at. So I thought I'd just clarify that for your benefit. Are there any questions relating to the appointment of the auditors? As I indicated, you can vote anytime during these proceedings. If you choose to vote now, do so, but you can vote anytime through these proceedings.
Chair, we have 2 questions in the room.
You're welcome.
Ms. Kathrina Stembis Ndlovu.
Can we hear the question?
Okay. My first question is about what to call it. As a shareholders, I understand that every month or whatever after financial year, there is this little money that is going to your account, and therefore there is a lot of money that is being advanced. What is our benefit? Is to selling the shares or whatsoever? Because I remember I do have 52 shares, which is closed, and therefore there is another one that every month you'll find that in your account they put a what to call it, little about 26 rand whatsoever. And again, in terms of this one of a bursary, when you check the bursary, not all of our kids are studying maths, physics, or whatsoever. So what is the benefit for our kids in that regard?
Thank you for the questions. Can we note those questions, and we'll deal with them in the general Q&A. Board members, please do so, and Sasol management will respond to that. Thank you very much for that question. Do we have any question relating to the appointment of the new auditors?
Chair, we have another question in the room.
It must relate to the auditors. Just a reminder. Yes, sir,
Mrs.
please go ahead.
Sebenzile Patricia Boy.
Are we having difficulties with the device? Are we still having the question? Or can I proceed?
Chair, please proceed. There are no further questions in relation to the auditors.
The next ordinary resolution, number 3, election of the audit committee members. The board has reviewed the proposed composition of the audit committee against the applicable regulatory requirements and confirms that the composition of the audit committee complies with the requirements. The board recommends the election of these directors as members of the audit committee. Ms. Nonkululeko Manyeka, Mr. Tabiso Madiba, and finally, Mr. Kananelo Maketa. Are there any questions on the election of these audit committee members? Just questions on these members. We are almost there. You're going to have your general Q&A shortly, just on these audit committee members.
No further questions, Chair.
Thank you. Please continue to do your voting on this particular resolution and the two that have just been, that we have just gone through. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like now to open the floor to shareholders to ask questions on any topics as presented during the shareholders' feedback session or any additional questions you may have related to the resolutions. As I had said in the beginning, this is your forum. We want you to be part of this decision-making processes where resolutions that you need to determine and give support to. So please do vote. That is very important. But now I'm going to open up the session for any question you may have. As I said to you earlier on, we want to make you feel heard. We want to get you not only feel heard, but valued in the process. So can we take questions of a general nature or any of the resolutions or anything that was sitting in your mind relating to the earlier presentation? I know there was a gentleman that said he had a question from Mr. Khanyisa. Yes. Yeah. There were two questions that were raised earlier on. I'm going to ask my colleagues who will deal with those, or anybody from Sasol will deal with the earlier questions that we deferred earlier on. One was around just Sasol bursaries, and there was there also a question on enterprise development? I beg you? And the issue around a dividend. Why are people getting dividends? How does that work? Can we deal systematically with the first one, the bursaries? Is there anything else that Sasol management wants to say around bursaries? There was something raised that, is it only for science candidates or is it applicable to all prospective candidates? Please go ahead.
Good morning, Chair. So the Sasol Foundation bursaries are for STEM and non-STEM degree studies. So children of Sasol Khanyisa shareholders have an opportunity to apply for non-STEM bursaries. It's not just the STEM-related bursaries only. So you can apply for any studies beyond just the STEM careers. Thank you.
Yeah. And there was also a question regarding ESD. Yes, Kananelo, go ahead.
Put your hand up, maybe. So, good morning once again.
Yes.
Just to clarify on the issue of the gradings, It's actually a way of enabling companies to understand as to where there are limitations in their business. So, as you would know, in this country, this is not a Sasol issue. We have requirements in terms of the tax, we have requirements in terms of CIPC registration, we have those compliance requirements from a government perspective. Those are actually also applicable within the Sasol environment. So what it does is it doesn't exclude you from being considered for development opportunities. It actually gives us a sense as to where you need support. Now you also get to know as to where you may be falling short, as opposed to the system we had before, where people didn't understand as to why they didn't qualify, what is it that they needed to meet. So it's more like a feedback mechanism, and also it allows us to be able to support your business effectively. I think we may all agree that if you are providing a service to our plants being hazardous installations, we want to make sure that you qualify. Because if you don't qualify, then we'll end up with safety incidents, which would have disastrous impact in terms of our communities. So it is really there to assist you, for us to be able to assist you effectively. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm going to ask my colleague, Kananelo Maketa, just to respond also to the bursary matter. Can you switch on Kanelo's mic, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. The point I would like to make and advise our shareholders is that we have realized that most of the applications for the bursaries that come from our members are declined. And that indicates that the members are not aware of the required criteria for applying. That's why, as a board and as a committee, we requested management that we do have a stand today whereby when we break for lunch, maybe we can visit the stand and ask for clarification so that we understand exactly what the requirements are, because we would like to see the majority of your children benefiting from what Sasol has to offer. So thank you, Chair.
I'm going to now deal with a question around the dividend, which is really a trickle dividend. It's not a full dividend. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Nonkululeko, to address that question. Can we open up Nonku's mic, please?
Okay. Thank you, Chair, for that question. So in essence, in accordance to the MOI, 2.5% of the dividends will be paid over as a trickle dividend to the shareholders, while the 97.5% will be paid to pay off the debt, in essence. So that is governed by the MOI.
And perhaps just to expand on that, I think the big issue for shareholders perhaps is that you get in such a small dividend, where does the rest of the money go? The rest of the money goes to settling our debt. And as you would have seen, we've moved from 8.3 billion to 5.6 billion at the end of this financial year. And if you go post the balance sheet, we even made further payment. So the repayment schedule is, our repayments at the current rate is ahead of the original repayment schedule. So we're doing well when it comes to repaying our debt. So that's where the money is going. It's not just disappearing. And what you receive is a trickle dividend. It's not a full dividend. That's why it is referred to as a trickle dividend. Can we take further questions?
Chair, we have a number of questions in the room that are lined up. The first is Education Africa.
Good morning. My name's James. I've got a few questions I always have every year. But first of all, congratulations to the Sasol Khanyisa team. I think we are doing well. But I still feel that even though we're paying off quite quickly now and the debt's coming down exponentially and it should come down quicker if we're going to be paying at these levels, can we still not get some sort of financial modeling to show us where we are standing if we're paying off at these levels? Are we going to land up paying before, or are we going to land up in a position that we're still going to be owing? But everyone must remember that we've been in this for 15 years. I think also in these presentations, we've got to stop the confusion. We are shareholders in Sasol South Africa. We're not shareholders in Sasol Limited. So when you're showing us that you're doing CSR work in the USA, if that is coming out of Sasol South Africa, I'll be very concerned. My guess that is coming out of South Africa Limited. Please, let's concentrate on showing what is happening in South Africa. And as Vuyo Kahla explained to us, the chair of South Africa, is that our shares are really influenced by activities in South Africa and Mozambique, not what's in America. And I'm hoping that we are not paying funding across to American CSR of $40,000 to people, which is, what, about 700,000 Rand. We would like that in South Africa. So please, let's stick to those things. And I also, again, will re-emphasize the question around the payment off and the financial modeling of our debt. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, and it's appreciated that you too also acknowledge that we are making good progress. As far as the financial model, I'm going to ask one of my colleagues, Nonkululeko, and she will, but I just want to make this remark. Clearly, we are ahead of the original payment schedule, so if we maintain that trajectory, we should settle this debt ahead of the 10 years. But we're not going to commit to it today because, you know, we're not running the business. We are recipients of the dividend. But I will ask Nonkululeko just to expand on the financial model.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the financial model, unfortunately, we are unable to share that information because of the sensitivities of the information that is in there. In that if we share it with Sasol Khanyisa, for instance, we need to share it with all participants or other stakeholders. But unfortunately, we are unable to share it due to the sensitivity of that information. I will also ask Crystal, perhaps, maybe to further elaborate on this.
Yes. Chair, so what we do provide on an annual basis is the fair value of the Sasol South Africa group, from which one can calculate the percentage at that point in time, with regards to the 9.19% shareholding, and then compare that to a debt to get to a net value a figure at that point in time.
You'll tell me when to close the platform, no? To tell them that. Thank you for that. The other question was relating to CSI. The impression created that perhaps Sasol South Africa is doing CSI in the US. Can Sasol management expand on that?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. Just to highlight, the reason why the video presents a broader picture is because our business in South Africa is part of a bigger global ecosystem in terms of where we do projects. However, just to clarify, from a South African perspective, all the work that gets done in South Africa from a CSI perspective is funded from Sasol South Africa. And all the work that gets done in the US is funded through the chemicals business, if you remember the diagram that Vuyo showed earlier. And any work that is done in the Eurasia space basically comes out of the chemicals business on that side. So everything, there are no funds that come from Sasol South Africa that go towards funding activities in the US. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you, Hao. Can we get further questions?
Chair, there are questions online. We have online participants. The first one is from Oma Ngwenya. Good day. How does one know if they are one of the shareholders who have unclaimed dividends?
Can we take another one?
A second online question from Nompumelelo Kumalo. We appreciate the appointment of the big audit firms as the auditors of the company. However, I would like to know if Sasol has considered the appointment of black-owned audit firms to provide the same service to the company.
Questions? The first one, I'll respond to that. The best way to understand whether you have unclaimed dividends, you need to update your banking details or just any information pertaining to yourself or your company is to contact JSE Investor Services. If you are present today, obviously they are present, but if you are online, their contact details are in the annual report. And if you're still having difficulties, please contact Sasol management and we will ensure that we get that resolved for you. It is a very important exercise that you update your contact details and banking details. Because if you don't do that, that's where you will end up with unclaimed dividends. And so please make that an important task whenever you are changing banks or your personal data may change. The other question on black auditors, can I ask Sasol management to give comment on that? Mr. Khanyisa?
Thanks a lot, Chair. It is correct that we consider black auditors as well in relation to the provision of these services. And this is a consideration that also went into this. But you would appreciate the complexity, the size, the geographic representation of the company across the globe requires that we have auditors who are able to service us across each of our different channels across the globe. And in the context of that, naturally, when it comes to the appointment of these auditors for the group, there would be consideration around also those factors. Included in that is also just not auditing in respect of the financial data. The appointment of KPMG includes also a focus in respect of auditing in respect of also non-financial information, the issues that we've dealt with around ESG, etc. And so we look into everyone, and indeed there are other opportunities we provide for firms, normally smaller firms, to assist in different other areas of the company. But I want to make it clear that that consideration was made together with other factors that need to be considered. And on the basis of that, it was decided that we needed a company that would be able to provide this audit across the globe. And that is indeed the mandate that KPMG will have, as was the case with the company that it is succeeding, PwC. Thanks a lot, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions in the audience? And then we'll go back online. Or any written questions?
Yes, Chair, there are questions in the room. The next one is Mr. Khonse Padime Hope Tobajane.
Good morning, everyone. So my question is a general question. Since Sasol Khanyisa is sort of like a BE arm of the Sasol entity, is there a reality where Sasol Khanyisa will like get into maybe venture capital and be its own self-sustaining entity that doesn't depend on cash flows from Sasol?
Thank you for the question. Any further question?
Next question, Chair, Mr. Moses Mokwalase.
Hello, morning everybody. I just want to ask, I didn't hear nicely because you say 2028, everybody will get this money, or we still go do something more than this one? I don't know. Thank you.
Yeah, there's two parts. I'll answer the first one, and I'll ask Nonkululeko, the chair to the audit committee, to deal with the second part. As far as venture capital, and you use the word having its own cash flows, I think what is priority to us is to service our debt. And we are a ring-fenced entity, and our sole activity is to hold our interest in Sasol South Africa. So there is no possibility at all for us to do anything else, save and except to service the debt, and we are there to oversee that and make sure that it is serviced timeously, correctly, and we have annual financial statements, and we have this gathering to present those annual financial statements to you, and to nudge management to continue to drive the business successfully so that those dividends come through, and one day you will have unencumbered equity. So that is all we can do. So the day you choose to sell your Sasol Khanyisa shares when they are in the BE platform, then you can elect what you do with that cash. But that's down the road. Can I then ask Nonkululeko Manyeka to respond to the, I think it's about the time horizon of the investment?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. So at the end of 2028, the hope is that there will be some value that will be created. So we'll look at what the fair value of Sasol South Africa will be at that point in time, if there's any debt. And the difference between the two will essentially be the value that will be created. That value will then be converted into SOLB1 shares depending on the value that is created at that point. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Nonku. Any further questions, online or written questions? There are 3 platforms. People can write their questions.
Yes.
Is there a question on the floor?
Chair, the next question is from Mr. Chukudi Theophilus Muhammadi.
My question is to Mr. Cutler. We saw reports on North America, Mozambique. We didn't hear about any reports from Nigeria. Have you left Nigeria, or you weren't there at all? Number 2, KPMG was fingered some few years ago. Have they been cleared? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the questions. I will direct this to Sasol management. The first one is about, do you have a presence in Nigeria? What has happened to the investment? And secondly, the recent past history of KPMG, how are you addressing that?
Thanks a lot. In relation to Nigeria, I think as many of you would know, we used to have gas to liquids operations in Nigeria, and together with the Nigerian Petroleum Company as well as Chevron, and we've since sold out our interest there. But of course, from a sales perspective, Nigeria gets to form part of areas that we would sell into, for example, from a chemicals perspective, but we're no longer having operations as we did with the GTL plant that we participated in Nigeria. In respect of KPMG, as you recall, KPMG went through a process around dealing with the issues that had affected it in the past. Those included the risk management process. It needed to reshape and rework the compliance arrangements it had in place. It made changes around its board of governance, its board, and ultimately even brought in an external person to chair its board. The board was therefore comfortable with all of the measures that were taken.
that KPMG had effectively addressed the areas of concerns, and this is a view that's also been held by many other players in the market having regard to the actions that were taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khanyisa. Can we take further questions? Are there any online or written?
Chair, currently there are no online questions at this time. We have further questions in the room.
Please
Next,
go ahead.
Mr. Bekani Gerald Mlambo.
Good morning, everyone. My question is directed to Mr. Kasha. During your presentation, I was expecting that you will mention the deal that you have signed with BMW for use of hydro fuel, and how will it add value to the to the shareholders. Number two is a windmill in Eastern Cape. I wanted to find out if maybe there will be inspectors that will be ensuring that when it comes to nature conservative, it is protected, because we've seen in other areas where the animals are being killed by the windmill. So will it be the inspectors that will be monitoring, and how much is that energy that is generated out of that windmill? Is it sustainable? Is it making a difference? Thank you.
Question. Mr. Carter, I don't know if you want to deal with other questions, or you got your team that will... Yes, I'll repeat. You had announced in the media, and I think that's where the gentleman is referring to the BMW green hydrogen collaboration with Sasol.
Okay, let me start off with that. That's correct. As you heard earlier, that I indicated that we produced for the first time in June green hydrogen of our plant in Sasolburg, and so we are looking at really deepening the commercial reach in respect of that plant. And that is on the back of the arrangements we've had both with Toyota as well as BMW and Anglo-American Platinum. We do believe that there's a role to be played by green hydrogen in decarbonizing mobility, and particularly when you look into long-haul transportation. If you take particularly the route of the N3, we believe there are opportunities there, and to the extent that we are able to capitalize on those, and again, we're still working with all of those partners that I've just mentioned around how we can effectively address that. So this is still early days. We're still trying to understand how all of that could work, and we're doing so with partners like Air Products, BMW South Africa, Toyota South Africa, as well as Anglo-American Platinum. Thank you so much. I think there was another question.
The question relates to your green energy out in the Eastern Cape, specifically your wind plants, and if it's sustainable, and if there are any environmental issues that need to be considered. Yeah.
We do believe they are indeed sustainable. We're using suppliers who have tried and tested technologies in relation to this. And indeed, the whole issue around biodiversity is equally an area of our own focus, and we've started ourselves doing the necessary assessments in relation to the footprint, our biodiversity footprint. And so indeed, we do care about that, and we're comfortable with the service providers that we have, that all of that should work the way it has been intended, without any adverse impacts on the environment arising from that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Chair, we have an online question from Omar Ngwenya. In terms of bursaries, does Sasol sponsor children who have learnership certificates that are recognized by the National Qualification Forum, or does it consider only matric as a form of application?
Can we take another one if we have?
We will return to the room. Mr. Henry Muzikaise Salbium Simango.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 15 years down the line, can I safely say that we're seeing some light down the tunnel? Thank you and congratulations to you and your board for that light that we see down the tunnel. What I want to ask is, Sasol receives, Khanyisa receives dividends from the pref shares that have been purchased at the cost of 8.6 billion rands. 15 years down the line, yes, we must not forget that's where we come from. We now say there is an outstanding debt of 5.6 million rands. Thank you for that once more. But we are told that at the end of the day, there is hope. We have to look at the fair value of Sasol, and we have to look at the debt, and if any value has been created, that's all we hear today. And we are ahead of the payment schedule. Then we ask, say, in view of the fact that we received only interest, what models are you? Because you depend on the dividend that you get. You can go wherever. You depend on the dividend that you get from Sasol at the end of the year to be able to say, we're going to pay this there, we're going to pay this there. That is why now we can comfortably say we'll be able to pay off the debt within the 10 years. And we are unable to tell you why we say that, but we hope that come 10 years we'll do that. My question will be, what is the single most, or maybe I shouldn't do that, shouldn't limit you. What are factors that have influenced the fact that this year you've been able to pay 2-point-something billion rands? You were able to reduce the debt to where we are. What are the factors that influence that? That at least you should be able to tell us. The second thing is, are there any contingency plans that you have to go and put in place to make sure that what enables you now to reduce the debt will be sustainable, or you can take insurance against? And I'm saying that fully aware on the background that you're only acting on interest that you, or the dividends or interest that you pay. And those decisions may be taken by Sasol SA. Please, can you, that thing. And lastly, this fair value of Sasol and that thing, when we are receiving shares and paying, what do you actually mean? Thank you.
Question, there's multiple questions there and issues of clarification, but can I deal with the learnership and whether Sasol supports learnerships in terms of bursaries? Can we deal with that question first?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that question. I think in terms of learnerships, we've already indicated there are clear requirements around our both STEM and non-STEM bursaries. And for more information, my team is at the stand ready to assist and to provide more guidance in terms of how do you access the bursaries, for the children of Sasol Khanyisa shareholders. I think in terms of learnerships are offered within our operations. They do have minimum criteria and they are run through our HR business. And it is, those adverts usually go out on social media platforms. They're also advertised locally within our fence line communities. So for more information in terms of opportunities for learnerships, really they're open to everyone. It is about being alert and on the lookout on our website, including our social media platforms, to see when those learnership opportunities are made available throughout the year, because they are in response to the requirements of our operations. I think those are the two questions that were asked. Hope I've answered them. Thank you.
Thank you. On the issue around the transaction itself, I'm just going to mention two issues, and I'm going to ask Nonkululeko, and she will decide who else needs to assist in that regard. Just for clarification, Sasol Khanyisa is a new transaction. It's not Sasol Nzalo. So we must make that distinction clear. Even though we're dealing with the same shareholders, same participants in the main, the same company, but it's two separate transactions. This one is at Sasol South Africa, and Nzalo was at Sasol Limited. So that's a clear distinction. Secondly, Sasol Khanyisa is a vendor-funded transaction. Simply put, it is funded by Sasol Limited. So Sasol Limited has advanced the capital. That's why we have that pref share structure, which we have to redeem from the dividends we receive. That's how the transaction is set up. So in terms of what is the prospects of success? Now, we don't have a crystal ball, nor do we run the business. But what we do, and it's front and center of our responsibilities as a board, is that we do engage Sasol management, including Mr. Vuyo Khatla today, on what is the payment profile of this investment. Are we going to continue remaining ahead of the curve? Because we certainly don't want to relive another Nzalo. That is not part of our conversations. We want this transaction to be successful. That's why we can proudly say to you today, we started off at 8.3, we are now at 8.6 plus, minus incidentally, because post-balance sheet, there was a further dividend payment, which my colleagues will share with you. But I will just defer it to Nonku and Christo, who can elaborate further.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. It's important to note that Khanyisa is underpinned by SSA in terms of performance. So any free cash flows will be declared as a dividend, 97.5% basically paying off the debt, which is the dividend that we've declared. There was an instance where there was a special dividend, and that was a sale of an asset that essentially assisted in further paying off the state and allowing us to be ahead of the payment schedule. I think I'll pass on to Christo if I haven't touched on anything.
Yes, maybe just to add on in terms of the key driving factors within SSA ultimately to generate free cash flows, basically highly dependent or highly impacted by macroeconomic factors such as oil prices, the prices of chemicals, then also exchange rates, as a lot of products are being sold in foreign denominated currency. Then also the ability to generate volumes and also demand and supply factors in terms of that. And then also lately, key focus on inflation impacting the cost base of Sasol South Africa. And then also in terms of maintenance, the maintenance profile of keeping the plants going from a capital perspective. So those are all key factors that does impact the free cash flows of Sasol South Africa.
Yeah, just a reminder, you are getting two dividends. You're getting the trickle dividend, which is from the Khanyisa transaction. And if you are a sole one shareholder, you're getting the Sasol Limited dividend. So you're getting a situation where you have two prospects of income. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are sole one shareholders, but if you are, you enjoy the same dividend that Sasol Limited shareholders are enjoying. Can we take any further questions?
Chair, we have a number of shareholders who are queued for questions. Yeah. The next is Mrs. Takalani Olga Muronga.
Okay, thank you. My one was based on the bursary, the STEM and non-STEM bursary. Our children they are rejected on both STEM and non-STEM bursaries because the requirements are so high. So my question is, should they meet the requirements during final exam because the requirements was based on grade 11? Is there any chances, can they still be considered? Thank you.
Can we take another question? We just take them in batches of 2.
Chair, the next question is from Mr. Abdul Kader Dango.
Thank you. Thank you and good day, sir. I assume that if everything goes well, then the Khanyisa shares will become Solby 1 shares in 2028. What is the prospect of Solby 1 shares becoming full-fledged Sasol shares? Thank you.
Thank you. The first question, can we address that? Yeah.
Is it loud? Yeah. So when applicants apply for bursaries, they need to meet the requirements at the time of the application. So if at the time of application they don't meet the requirements, they are unfortunately declined. But I do want to say that there is a special dispensation for children of Sasol Khanyisa shareholders, in that although we set the requirements very high, at like minimum of 70% pass, in reality, when we do the selection, we relax the requirements, specifically for this category, that is the children of Sasol, children of Khanyisa shareholders. So if we were to delve into the actual statistics of the percentage pass that we accept for bursaries, particularly for beneficiaries of Khanyisa shareholders, we would see that we are hovering at 50% actually, Chair. We don't necessarily, otherwise we would not award the bursaries as per the ring-fenced budget, because we get a budget to award specifically for beneficiaries of Khanyisa shareholders. So we try by all means to award bursaries, even if it means relaxing the criteria. Thank you, Chair.
Just on the next question, what is the prospects of Sol B shares becoming Sasol Limited shares? As of now, it does not provide for that. We need to service the debt, then get the conversion into Sol B shares. But as legislation evolves, I mean, we cannot rule it out. We'll need to engage Sasol management if that could be a possibility. But our governing agreements as of today is that the conversion happens at Sol B shares on the BEE platform. I don't know if there's anything to add from my colleagues or from Sasol. Yeah. Thank you. Any further questions in the audience?
Next question, Chair, Mr. Stephen Nyakale Madalane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and the audience. Yes, one has been waiting, like one of those trials that we've been waiting during the Rugby World Cup. But I believe, I'm saying this because talking about 2028 coming and the questions that have been asked around that, when Nonku was saying that once 2028 comes, possibilities are that the main company might look into what needs to be addressed financial-wise. It became a little bit of a concern because my understanding was that once our loan is settled, as much as it's being financed by the main company, then we'll be free to get the dividends, not the bid, because the interest has been paid and the loan has been settled. But I've had, quite a number of people asking that question, but it still leaves me with a lot of questions, which I believe it will be cleared as time goes on. My main question was directed to the ESD, which one would like to appreciate. But my concern is we've got a lot of rural areas which I believe Sasol should also outreach to. Is there any formal platform that the rural areas are benefiting out of it or are able to use it in order to also get the benefit out of Sasol? The last one is with regard to the hydrogen. I beg your pardon if I am not be well informed about the hydrogen because I had the green hydrogen. My concern is, did we consider the byproducts that will be coming out of that and what is going to happen with them in case they are negative to our environment? Thank you.
For the questions, can we start with the ESD one? I'm sure you heard the question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. The platform that we use, which is the linkage platform, is actually open countrywide. So it is not limited to businesses that are in and around Johannesburg or these areas. So from a platform point of view, which is basically what we use for opportunities, the linkage platform is open for businesses anywhere in South Africa. In terms of the support, we do have programs that are open again to South Africa. We just closed on a women in engineering program, for instance, that was open across the country. So we do not discriminate those that are in the rural communities. Thank you.
Yeah. You want to deal with it?
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
If I may address the green hydrogen question in the audience. So today, just for context, today Sasol actually produces our own grey hydrogen as part of our Fischer-Tropsch process. So that already happens in our facilities, both in Secunda and Sasolburg. What we've done now is a trial with green hydrogen using existing equipment that we've actually retrofitted. So green hydrogen by nature is sustainable and has no impact on the environment because you use renewable energy to produce it, and then the product is then certified as green. That was part of a test that we're doing as part of a longer term plan in our strategy to become a leader in the green hydrogen space. We believe that our assets can be transformed, and that's part of our decarbonization journey. But green hydrogen production by itself actually is sustainable, and that's why it's referred to as green and not the grey hydrogen that we produce today. I hope that provides a bit of context for you.
Thank you. Do we still have any questions?
Yes, Chair. Next question in the room is Ms. Justina Manana.
Is it a question in the audience, or where's the question coming from?
It's an audience question. Ms. Justina Manana.
Miss, or is it Mr.? I see a hand. Huh? Or is the problem with the mic?
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
It's me, Mr. Manana.
Yes.
Okay. So, can I get an interpret, man? I'm not good in English.
Yes, please go ahead.
Oh, it's fine with the Zulu.
Please go ahead.
With Zulu?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ngizwe lana khulunywa ngabantwana via ama-bursary decline abakhoni ukuya esikolweni, so bengifuna ukwazi zikhanyisa if kena abantwana abangakhoni ukuya esikolweni, you cannot maybe create maybe temporary jobs khona lapho kuma mining bancenge meantime bahlele emakhaya because phela ngithi maba decline ibhazari cannot go to school so bahlale emakhaya so ayikho enye into engabayenzela iskill or job creation ke sisi nathi singama shareholders nisizame nga something for abantwana.
Thank you for the question. Can we take another question?
Chair will take an online question from Christopher Labuso. There are 4 questions within his post. The first is, how is Sasol addressing operational challenges, especially in light of recent global events? The second part is, what have been the financial impacts of the Sasol Khanyisa program on the company's balance sheet and overall financial health? The third is, how does Sasol engage with Sasol Khanyisa participants to ensure they are informed and able to maximize the benefits of the program? And the last is, what challenges has the company faced in implementing and maintaining the Sasol Khanyisa program, and how have they been addressed? I can repeat if you wish, Chair.
No, I think we've noted those. Can we deal with the first question, my Sasol colleagues? Perhaps you can respond to any job opportunities or support for communities.
Thank you to the gentleman who asked that question. You would have noted when I gave the presentation that I also highlighted our Bridge to Work program, and that really is targeted at both youth, not in employment equity, not in employment education or training, but also it is targeted at young women and is targeted at adults out of work. And the intent behind the Bridge to Work program is to close this critical skills gap that is keeping those who are unemployed from accessing meaningful work opportunities. And we do that by providing them with technical skills training. Once they've received the technical skills training and they've graduated, they're then eligible to receive a starter pack that enables them to pursue or to start the work that they have studied for, either to find employment, but secondly, as an option, to start their own micro business. So it's important that we highlight that even if you didn't get a bursary through the Sasol Foundation, there are opportunities if you are within our fence line communities to access those opportunities. Again, it is an application process, so it's not a given. You do go through an application process in order to be part of the programs, and those programs include agriculture, they include welding, they include business digital services that I highlighted, it includes handyman programs, amongst others. And then, of course, they will also include programs like the ones that are run through Sasol Mining, around portable skills training. It'll include programs that are run locally, like some of the projects that have been run in Secunda, which include qualifications in terms of making or garment sewing. So those are programs that we develop in collaboration with our communities and in response to where the need has been highlighted. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Then dealing with the 4 questions, I'm going to ask for the first 2 questions. I think they can be dealt together because it deals with Sasol's operational challenges and how you're dealing with those in the light of the global economy. And also, does the Sasol Khanyisa transaction have any impact on the balance sheet of Sasol or Sasol Limited? I think that was the question. Can I request those be dealt with together?
Thank you. As I indicated earlier, we have been navigating a number of challenges in respect of our operations. Part of that, of course, have included issues in respect to the availability of coal at the right volumes that we're looking for, as well in the right quality. And we've also, as part of that, are busy investigating mechanisms to deal with that, and particularly the destoning of the coal, and we having a process to assess appropriate technologies that could enable us to address that. But overall, of course, we also have to look into dealing with our
operations, ensuring that they continue to run efficiently, that we lower our costs and effectively manage our costs optimally. And so those are part of the issues that, that we've been looking at. It's been, of course, as you know, in respect of the funding, this is funding that we provided for this transaction, which is the vendor funding that's been indicated, and it's been paid back to us, as you indicate, and has been indicated, and you've seen the schedule reflecting that the payment of the funding for the Khanyisa transaction. I think it's important for us to emphasize that this transaction is of great value to us. It enables us to have the credentials we need in order to do business, but equally, it enables us to participate effectively in transforming the economy by transforming ownership in our business. And as you are aware, Sasol South Africa is the largest of the subsidiaries of Sasol Limited, and we are allowing through that participation by a big segment of people, and we believe that in itself contributes to transforming the South African economy. And we are proud to be associated with Khanyisa, and we doing everything to make sure that it is a success. And again, that success begins with us ensuring that our operations operate effectively. There are a number of challenges, of course, that we've got to navigate, including regulatory challenges, as well as the challenges that are indicated in my address in respect of, for example, provision of services by state-owned enterprises. All of those, we focus on finding solutions together with our stakeholders, and we do believe working together we can find win-win solutions on them. Thank you.
Thank you for the response. Just to deal with the other two questions, and I'll also ask my colleagues to elaborate. Firstly, as Mr. Khanyisa has indicated, we are an important shareholder of Sasol South Africa. The fact that we are able to convene a forum of this nature, which is required by law within the Companies Act, it's the ideal platform to understand the affairs of the company of which you own into. So how do we engage you? We use this forum. This is the best and ideal forum. There's no other alternative. That's why I have indicated to you from the outset that we want you to feel heard, and we value your contribution. So whether it's your input, your comments, or an opinion, it is valued. So this is the forum for you to fully participate and participate unrestrained, you know. So there's no other forum where you can enjoy this engagement. And we welcome it. Even beyond this, if you want to reach out to Sasol Khanyisa, please do so. We also have the privilege, not all companies do that we have senior management from the operating entity availing themselves to answer all manner of questions. So that is also a demonstration on how we also value you getting to know what is happening with the underlying investment. You must know Sasol Khanyisa is simply a funding structure. We don't run the business. We don't make decisions whether dividends are paid or not. We are recipients of a dividend to settle a debt. The day our debt is fully serviced, you will be the master of your own cash flows, because you will now get the unencumbered cash flows that come to you and you can decide. But whilst there is debt, that is our single most important task, to make sure that there's financial statements, the debt repayment is correct, the dividends are correct, and we present this forum for you to raise your concerns, express opinions, and feel part of this ownership structure. Colleagues, anybody wish to add to that? Cananello, can you open Cananelo's mic, please? Yeah. can you open Cananelo's microphone, please?
Thank you,
Makhet,
Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. I would just like to add on the issue of communication and keeping the shareholders informed. What we do also as your board is to monitor the questions that are asked during the AGM. We monitor JSE Investor Services in terms of the questions and the queries that comes through JSE Investor Services. We analyze them, and the two inform the composition of the AGM and the educational session of the AGM. And also the two informs our engagement with the Sasol executive. What are the issues that we put to the executive on their behalf and on behalf of the scheme are informed by yourselves through the AGM asking questions and yourselves through asking questions and interacting with the JSC Investor Services on a day-to-day basis. We look at the communication program that we approve for you as the board in terms of how do we engage with the shareholders and on what issues do we communicate to the shareholders and when. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further comments, colleagues? Okay, any further questions? Can we go back to the questions?
Yes, Chair, back in the room. Next one is Marai Joseph Mako.
Thank you, Chair, and good day to all. I just have two quick questions. The first one is regarding the fair value of Sasol Khanyisa. I see here on the annual report, I think on page 3, it's stated at 2.4 billion, but on the next page, I see it is 3.5 billion on page 6. And on one of the slides during the presentation, I saw a figure of 2.6 billion. If I can just get clarity on those figures. And lastly, Chair, seeing that we are ahead of the payment schedule, is the board perhaps looking at increasing the trickle dividend? Well done with the repayment. Though the good work is shadowed by lack of capital growth, seeing that we started at 8.6 billion, and we are currently somewhere below half of it. Thanks, Chair.
Can we take two more questions so that we can just give everybody a fair opportunity to raise any questions?
Next question,
We
Chair.
do have time constraints. As much as I said, we have this forum for you, but we are also limited on how long we can go. So I'm going to ask that we make our questions concise, and if we can take a few more.
Next question is from Michael Raboko.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm happy about this part of beneficiaries. It was well explained on the screen. So how the beneficiary will claim the funds if we passed away. So that information is very important. I think it would be better if we give us the information the way it was displayed on the screen. I don't know if we have it in this document. So number 2, I'm going back to the 2028. If there is any debt, so my request is financial amnesty. Hey, 15 years now, we are still in debt. After 2028, I think we'll still be in debt. Our generation to come, they will still be in debt if they are still in part of the Khanyisa. So could you please, because I don't know who we owe. If we owe Sasol, let's please ask Sasol to erase our debts so that we receive what you call the dividends, that is what benefit or that can solve our financial problems. Because what we are getting now, it's not even peanuts. I don't know do I call it. So it's very painful. We are just coming here for fun because what we are getting really. Now I joined the company because I wanted to learn about stock market and how to buy shares and other things. But for the money for other things, 15 years, nothing. I tasted nothing about the dividends. Thank you so. Oh, let me. The last one is this one. Transnet. Transnet is a government entity. So when we put our asset or financial in order to help them, it's a good idea, but I think the government, they got big hands when they handle their finances. So let them eat our money anyway. So because we are investing on them to help them to have a real structure that I'm offline. Okay, I'm back. Thank you. So, really, Transnet, I don't trust them. So, but here, if you think it is good to put our asset monies, so go ahead. Another thing is about Lakes and Charles. What is going on there? What is what? Are we still investing in Lake Charles? Okay. Let me see. Amnesty, minutes, okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Take those questions. They seem to be related, and I like the big hands. The fair value, would we deal with that one? And then I'm going to ask Ntate Mohapi to deal with the deceased estate. If you could just give a quick recap on what you shared. And then there's the Transnet as well as Lake Charles, if we can deal with them in that sequence. Can you switch on Christo's mic on, please?
Thank you for the question. So basically, if we refer to page 3 of the notice, you'll note that when we refer to the fair value there, we specifically refer to it as being the IFRS value, and on the next page, it is the fair value from a market participant's perspective. The transaction is being executed in terms of the fair value from a market participant's perspective, which is the 3.5 billion. And then on page 3, the number that we quote there is the number that we unfortunately need to quote from an IFRS perspective when we do the financial statements. Because we are bound according to accounting standards to use that number. But in terms of the measurement of the transaction, there we refer to the 3.5 billion that's included on page 5.
Hello, thank you. My understanding is it was more of a compliment to say we've done it well in terms of deceased estates, to say you do have the information displayed there. But the question is, do we have it in the booklets? And I don't think we have it in the booklets, Chair. Now, the question is, okay, do we have it here? Is it there? Okay. We're trying to go through, we did not see the page number. If it's there, then it's good news. But just to quickly recap, for purpose of other shareholders who arrived after my presentation, page 55 and 56. Thank you, Melissa, thank you. It is there, pages 55 and 56. Obviously, when a shareholder passes on, you've got to notify us. Our JSE investor people are available. You've got to give them that death certificate, the letter of executorship. You've got to give us your services bill, like your municipal bill, not older than 3 months. Bank statements also not older than 3 months. So yes, and just to reiterate, pages 55 and 56, the information is there. When, for instance, you came through a trust, the relationship will be between Sasol Khanyisa and the trust. Therefore, anything happens that a member of that trust passes on, inform the trust. Equally, they will still go through the same route of going back to a JSE investor services, then the process will be exactly the same. But please, let's encourage our shareholders to have wills. It's much easier when you have a will where you're also going to include your shares. All movables and immovables can be included in your will. When you die without a will, you die interstate, it becomes more complex and time-consuming than when you already have the information in the will. Thank you, Chair.
Can we deal with the last two from Sasol side?
I think my friend over there, just on the hands of Transnet executives, I am meeting next week with one of the leaders of Transnet. I'll make sure that as I greet him, that I take account of the size of their hands. I think on a more serious point, Transnet is a very important service provider to the South African economy. It's critical to Sasol. It provides services across the ports, the pipelines, as well as rail. All of those areas are critical to us. Some of our products, because of safety concerns, can only be transported by rail, and it is important that that's be done correctly. We've been working with them, taking into account some of the challenges they've had around the availability of rolling stock. And so, amongst other things, we've looked into whether we could get into leasing some of the rolling stock so we get to almost have it operated on our behalf, and we get to be responsible for maintenance for that, so that we don't have a situation where we're having expectations around availability of rolling stock, for example, in relation to ammonia, and are not able to find it because it's not been fixed. And so we're working around that. We're doing it in a responsible way to make sure that we get the right value for our shareholders and that nothing gets wasted in that process. But more importantly, is to enable us to ensure that we can effectively run the business, as I've indicated, across all those different lines, whether it's in the pipelines, they bring us crude from the coast to the inland refinery in Sasolburg, which is Natref. So they're important to us on the pipeline side. We export products. It is important that we are able to work with them effectively on the port side. And we also transport products on rail, and so we need to have, on all of those areas, all of that effectively managed. And we do believe that we can find solutions to the benefit of ourselves as Sasol, but equally for South Africa. And we're grateful to the partnership we have with Transnet. In respect of Lake Charles, of course, is now operating. It is, of course, just the challenges that we face globally around demand for chemicals and pricing for chemicals. But the facility is operating well. Thanks.
Thank you for the response. We still have a few questions online, so I'm going to ask, because some of the questions overlap, and some of them are almost like repeats. But we would like to go through all of them, and we'll take at least 3 or 4 of them at a time now, and hopefully we can address all the questions, because by 12:30 we would need to wrap up things and address the business of the day, which was the resolutions that you had to vote on. So once more, a reminder that please, you need to vote on those resolutions. So can we take 5 questions at a time.
Chair, the next question is from Marwane Jacobs Mala.
Tobel, I personally appreciate what you are doing in terms of payment, because I understand you are ahead in terms of interest. So, meaning that is calculatable, that maybe you know when you go at this rate of interest, maybe it's going to take 20 years, 40 years or so. So, my question exactly, Machonesa, who are we owing? And then how soon or how long are we gonna settle the debt? Or is it lifetime thing or until Jesus Christ come? I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we get another two, 3 more questions?
Next question, Chair. Bongani Alson Hlatshwayo.
And just by the way, the polling is going to close in 5 minutes, so please make sure you vote.
Afternoon. My first question, I want to know, Trustnet, Sasol is dependent on Trustnet to do business, because we have a problem with the state-owned companies. I don't know, is Trustnet only Trustnet or there are other companies that is doing business with Sasol? I want to know again with this 5.6 billion. I think now we are left only with 4 years. So I want to know that in 4 years' time we are going to pay this 5.6 billion, because it sounds as if we are concentrating on paying debt, but you don't get the dividends as a shareholder. So I don't understand.
Thank you. Can we take another question? We left probably with 2 minutes before polling closes, so just a reminder, can we take another question?
Next question, Chair. Michael Mlungisi Dladla.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Chair, it's almost 5 years this lady, Khanyisa, was born. And I wanted Chair if you can share with us, when she was born, how much debt she had. Because we never get clarity, the previous lady, Sasol Inzalo, when he died in 2018. And thanks that we have tried so hard to push her debt, but we a little bit lost how much she had when she was born, how much debt she had. And trajectory, it showed that probably it might be, her debt might be settled probably before 2028. But obviously, as a shareholder, I'm a little concerned, because time and again I've been told that, look, you owe. Like the previous lady that died around 2018, that when we were somewhere across the road in Hilton, we were told that, look, there was so much that she owed. But can you just brief us, when she was born, how much did she indebted to debt? Thanks.
There are many debt-related questions, so we're going to deal with them. Can we take another one?
Next question, Chair, from Thandi Gloria Buthelezi.
Good day, everybody. First, thank you so much for the information that I got today. I think I feel free to go back to my home language. Nginesicelo sokuthi nginabazukulu abajoyina ama-shareholders. Bebe bancane, manje bakhulile. Bengicela ukubuza ngoba bangaphansi kwe-account yami, ukuthi kuyenzeka yini ukuthi bahlukane kube yiloyo naloyo azimele abe yi-shareholder ngokwakhe. Okwesibili, nginale nkinga yokuthi engithembayo ukuthi nakhona ngizosizakala ngayo. ngalahlekelwa iphone cishe 2 years back ukuthi ngizo replace kanjani new number ukuthi ngizoya kuphi namhlanje ukuthi ngihambe ngisizakele ngiyabonga.
I think the bulk of the questions are around the debt structure, why you're not getting dividend, what was the entry point, where are we with the debt. So I'm going to ask my board members, Nonku, and you can direct it, as to just to crystallize it once more for shareholders. When the transaction started, what was the debt figure, what happens to annual dividends, just systematically, because I think it will address all the questions around debt. Then there was a question on Transnet. I don't know if we had answered it previously already, but Sasol management, if there's anything you wish to expand on that. So can we just spend time, because I think the debt issue, there's still a lot of clarification required.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for those questions. So when Sasol Khanyisa was designed, the initial debt that it had in its name was 8.3 billion rands. And this, and who Khanyisa essentially owes is Sasol. So Sasol funded this thing, right? At an interest rate of, what is it? Prime times 75%, sorry, 75% of prime, right? And the interest that accrued was about 2.7 billion, and we have subsequently paid about 5.4 billion, which means today, or rather at the end of the year, we had a balance, the financial year that is, we had a balance of 5.6 billion. So we owed this money to Sasol Limited, who funded us, vendor funding of prime 75%, and today, at the end of 30 June 2023, we owe a debt of 5.6 billion. Now, in terms of dividends, you should be getting a trickle dividend of 2.5%. So if you're not getting that dividend, then you'd probably need to update your details so that you can get those trickle dividends. And I think that, and then in terms of the settlement of the debt, the plan is that it gets settled by before, if possible, 2028. And based on the payment schedule and the fact that we're ahead, if we keep this up, there's a likelihood that we will settle the debt within the given time period. Thank you.
Any further comments, Tabiso? Anything from your side? Just, I think the more voices we have from the board, maybe it will clarify it further.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Tabiso Madiba, can you open up his mic, please?
Thank you, Chair. The payment schedule that we are paying now is based on free cash flow in SSA. And as much as there is free cash flow, there is a dividend that is paid. There was a question around, is there a possibility to fast track the debt so that the interest is not going to be accumulating as much? When there is free cash flow based on the budgets going forward, that amount is distributed as a dividend to be able to settle the debt as much as possible. And that is the plan. The plan is to pay it off as fast as we can so that we can start seeing the value going to the shareholders.
Thank you. Can we deal with the Transnet issue? I don't know if that needs further clarification.
I'm not too surprised, Chairman, that we've gotten this question on Transnet so many times. Because recently in September, I was on an international roadshow, and at every meeting, we were asked this question. And again, it speaks to the point that I've already said. Transnet is critical to this economy in terms of what it provides. And we do believe that we can work with them as well as with other players to solve the problems together with them that affect many of the players in the economy. They are essentially amongst the most significant of our service providers. Of course, Eskom is also one other SOE that is a significant service provider to us. There might be others who provide lesser, some other services, far more lesser, certainly not at the same level of significance as Transnet and Eskom in terms of size and the extent of the services provided. But as we've said, the focus is on us working together with all of our stakeholders to find solutions beneficial to all of us. And more importantly, as we look at it from a Transnet perspective, is equally on their side, focusing on solutions that are ultimately beneficial to all of the key players in the economy. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to take the last written questions and address all those, and then we're going to focus on the remaining questions in the audience, because we are running out of time. And we still need to conclude the business of today, which is the 3 resolutions. So can I get the written question? I think there's 1 or 2 written questions.
There are 2 written questions, Chair, from the same shareholder, Christopher Labuso. First is, how is Sasol dealing with the transition to clean energy, and what is the status of the medium-term budget for this, and will this budget not have an effect on Sasol's ability to pay future dividends, thereby affecting the Khanyisa scheme? And then the second question, the Sasol CEO once remarked, and I quote, "We know that the sunset of the oil industry is staring us in the face," close quote. Is the future of Khanyisa not endangered by this realization by Sasol? I mean, we are still owing 5.6 billion.
Can we deal with that question, Mr. Carter?
I think I must have missed just the last question, but I think the first question was around the focus around our transition as well as air quality focus. We're working on that, and indeed we have already provisions respect of our sustenance capital concerning our existing business, and we are also covering from a transition perspective that we're working around between 15 to 25 billion. It has no, what is important is that if we're able to execute the programs that we have well, that enable us to transition effectively and to do so in a way that is equally still profitable for the business. We have every interest in sustaining the profitability and success of Sasol South Africa. And so even as we're looking at into the investments we are doing in respect to air quality, we believe that we can do so in a responsible and effective way. Of course, there is an impact to the transition that we have. And hence we indicated the impairment that I made reference to in respect of the liquid fuels refinery cash generative unit. There are measures that we're putting in place to see how best we can mitigate those risks. But of course, they've not been mature to the point where we can actually suggest that we need to have a real look at that impairment. We're not at that point yet, but we have taken the impairment, take into account, of course, the objectives that we've set out in respect of our emissions reduction roadmap to 2030. And it is with that in mind that there had been some, the impairment that I made reference to earlier. Thank you, Chair. I think there was a last one which I lost.
Yes, it was quoting the CEO on reference to him alleged to have said the oil industry or oil business is a sunset industry, and does that pose any risk to our dividend payments as Sasol Khanyisa?
I think what is important is that South Africa, as everywhere else in the world, there's a focus around transition. We ourselves have indicated in terms of our strategy, there's reset. The reset is about getting the business, the foundation business we have, which includes Sasol South Africa, operating efficiently, generating the right income in order to enable us to equally invest in our transition. The transition, of course, is transition to lower carbon solutions, lower carbon businesses, where, for example, in some instances, we might be lowering the amount of coal that gets into our processes and bring in gas, which is much more cleaner than coal, but equally moving into a deeper portion around our renewables, but and equally just looking into areas like green hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuels. Those allow us, as we say, we move into also reinventing ourselves. The key point about is to reinvent ourselves to being a green business. So when we look into all of this, we believe that they give us the opportunity to be sustainable, to continue to make to continue to make a difference, and to continue to have sustainable earnings. It is about that emphasis that we brought in around resetting our business to enable us to be resilient and robust to fund the transition. And part of the transition includes bringing a gas and lowering the use of coal, and ultimately getting into the space of reinventing our businesses. So when we look at that, we don't see this as adversely impacting, as necessarily going to adversely impact the dividend to be generated. Because again, our focus, especially as we're talking on the reset side, is to ensure that the business continues to make good earnings. And as we've said, it's not a case of even around the sunset factor around coal and oil. It's not simply a case of switching off and then suddenly it's all gone. It's a transition that is going to go through over some period. And so we've got to look at it in that way, that we're going to transition over a period. We're not going to suddenly move from where we are to the next phase. Thank you.
Thank you for that comprehensive response. Can we deal with the last 10 questions in the audience? We have 10 questions. I want to afford all the individuals, the 10 individuals, and I'm going to ask if we can take them in batches of 4, because some questions are interrelated. And if somebody has asked your question, we will definitely, it just saves time if you repeat in the same question. So, but if it's a very different question, please go ahead. So can we have the first 4 questions in the audience?
Next question is from Batlokwa Ikageng Society.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, with this one. My question is, I belong to a group, but I am the main shareholder. Now, the person who I am with in the group, how will she, or my question first is, the will, how will she write a will that will benefit her as, and with me also, how will that work? And the other question is, there is the mentioning of certificate, Sasol certificate. Who are entitled to have those certificates? And another question is, with education, how many schools have you held up to this far? I thank you.
Okay, let's get other questions.
Next question, Chair, from Jeremiah Ndumiso Mali.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be short. My question is just that maybe I missed out. How did we dump Price Waterhouse and Coopers and for KMPG? Thank you.
Next question.
Next question is from Patrick Jeremiah Rapella.
Good day, Chair. I just want to add something. I heard that Sasol, they are losing sites and license. It is true. And then other question is, when you send an SMS that a shareholder will receive a dividends, you said, maybe let me give an example of 10 rand. You said a shareholder will get 10 rand per shareholder, per shares. So I just want to know if you said per share, are you calculating the number of the shares that he has, or what are you doing?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we take the last one and then we'll deal with these questions?
Next question is from Raisibe Selina Nchole.
Nna ne ke batla go botsisa potso e one gonne a ke kry dividends le nna and taba bobedi ke ile ka ba founela he ke founa ba mpotsa gore di-shares tsa ka ga di teng ko JSE di ko Sasol ga ke itse gore go iragala bjang.
Okay, we've got the questions. I'm going to group them. Firstly, there's a question around wills, if that can be dealt with through Mr. Mohape, just to reiterate what we have. And then I will group the issue around certificates and education. There was a question related to that. Would that also be addressed? There's a repeat question on KPMG. Can somebody just deal with that once more for the benefit of that shareholder, even though we have ventilated it earlier? And then if you could also deal with the SMS communication. You want to do that, Nontando? There was an SMS communication that we released notifying shareholders on their dividend. Is there anything you wish to expand on that?
Chair, I believe the question is around the details of the SMS, Chair, and I think Christo could
I'll ask Christo to deal with that. Yes. Christo?
Thank you, Chair.
The question was, when you receive an SMS and it indicates what your entitlement is as a shareholder, is it capturing the payment per share? He just wants confirmation of that. If it's 10 rand, is it 10 rand per share? Is that what is reflected? Yeah. Yes. And then there was the last question dealing with the JSE Investor Services, which is really the main organization. And that lady who's asked the question, JSE Investor Services are present here today. So please go to them, give your information to them, and they will do all the updates. That is the most reliable, that's the most suitable, and today cannot be a better day. They are present, and you'll find them at the back of this gathering. So please go to JSE. They have a walk-in facility. Please go to them to update your... And Mr. Mahape? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the first question, the lady regarding the stokvel and the will, the drafting of the will. Let's start with the first part. When you buy shares as a stokvel, just like when you buy through a trust, that's a group. So a stokvel must have a constitution, for instance, and you're going to then have a deal with Sasol Khanyisa. That constitution will be helpful in terms of governance, and it's got its own rules and everything. So the agreement is going to be between the stokvel and Sasol Khanyisa. Is that in order? When any change happens, if it's death or anything, it's got to be to the stokvel, who must then go to JSE Investor Services. And I agree with the chairperson, please, to all of us, where you're changing banking details, your residential address, your cell number, any change, to your profile, please make sure that you inform the JSE Investor Services. So when it comes to the will, and Mama says you are the majority shareholder, others have got shares, but they are minority shareholders, but you're talking about the wills. Here you're only talking about individual wills. Anybody is allowed. You can go and do an individual will with whoever is fit to drop a will for you. Lawyers do that. You know, your banks can also do that. You do have accountants who also provide will nomination services. So you are allowed to go and drop your own will in your own name. Commonly, where you can have joint wills, it's when you have husband and wife. That's why I'm saying commonly. But please, as individuals, go and drop your will, and you can include your Sasol Khanyisa shares. Nothing stops you from doing that. So in terms of the allocations, the distributions, as a group under that stokvel, it's something that you have to deal with the JSE Investor Services, just in case anything happens. Is that in order, Mama? Chairperson, through your permission, there's one question that we missed, and that has to do with Mama asked about having grandchildren, and the grandchildren are now adults. They are big enough, and you are holding the shares in your name, and you'd like those shares to be in their names. Mama, the answer is today, and I'm happy that you are here. We do have JSE Investor Services. Go to their desk today. You can do the transferring of shares from your name to their names. So long as they are black people, because remember the transaction has restrictions to say it's got to empower black people. So yes, you can transfer those shares, but do that through JSE Investor Education today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Can we deal with the educational part again? It overlaps to what some of the things we said, but I think it's important we just repeat some of them.
Thank you, Chair. I think really the one key new piece of information that was asked really was around how many schools we have supported, or how many schools have we helped. If around our fence-line communities, and I'm talking Sasolburg, Secunda, Ekandastria, and KZN, we support roughly over 150 schools directly, where we intervene directly together with our implementing partners. Our national mobile labs around the country impact a further 330 schools across South Africa. We have mobile labs that have been placed as far as the Eastern Cape in Komfimvaba. So they've been placed as far away as that. We just recently placed one now in the Mpumalanga University. We've also set up more recently laboratories or coding and digital laboratories in certain schools, including those in KZN, and we're doing that in partnership again with some of our implementing partners. So overall, and then in our TechSanet program, which really targets technical education and technical schools, we support roughly about 12 schools, and that we do in partnership with between 12 and 15. And that we do in partnership with the Kagiso Trust as our co-funder in that space. And I think if the technical schools competition or the technical skills competition impacts significantly more schools that are not just within the 12 that we've identified, but expands outside of that network. And we recently ran a skills competition across 5 provinces in South Africa who participated in the national skills competition that we are running together with the Kagiso Trust as well as the Department of Basic Education. I hope that answers your question, Mama.
Thank you very much for that. And then there was the KPMG PwC, if you can speak to that. And then I know there was an issue or reference to Sasol losing sites and licenses. I don't know if that is was the question. And I'm not sure where the speaker obtained that information. Perhaps if they can clarify that further. But when you receive an SMS, that SMS is an indication of what your dividend is per share. So if you have 100 shares, you'll multiply it by whatever that number is by 100. So that's what it indicates. It's a very useful tool to alert you on when the dividend gets paid. I think we've addressed those questions. And then can we go now to the last batch of questions? There are 5 individuals who wish to pose questions. So can we do them as quickly as we can, starting with the first? Yeah.
Next question.
But before we go there, can we just deal with the KPMG? Yeah. Yeah. Can you switch on Nonkulela's mic, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair, for that question. So in essence, there's a mandatory audit firm rotation that is legislated. So I think the tenure is around every 10 years. So PwC had come to the end of that tenure, and then Sasol embarked on a process of appointing new auditors, and this is where KPMG came into the situation as it now stands. Thank you.
Can we start with a new batch of questions? There are 5 of them.
Next question, Chair, is from Marai Joseph Mako.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to find out, when should we expect the conversion from Khanyisa to Solbi E1? Is it in 2028 or when the debt is settled?
Thank you. That's sharp and sweet.
Next question, Chair,
yes,
is from Matlu Kalaba.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. My question is linked to the previous written question around the just transition. And I understand that the response was that there is progress and it involves a number of things. But one way of tracking the response or performance on that progress is through the tax obligations that are related to the environmental issues. The carbon tax was introduced in 2019. I think it would be helpful if we are aware or are told how has been our tax obligation been over time. In other words, if it is increasing, we are paying more tax due to our operational procedures. Is that because the operations have increased, or is because we are polluting more? Because the tax is basically based on the tonnage of carbon emissions per period. So that will be helpful in knowing that we are moving in the right direction, or there are other factors that are influencing the tax payment. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Can we have the third one?
Next question is from Moses Mokwalase. The next question is from Joel Sekwati.
Nna potso ya ka e ne tshwana le ya mme ka hore kgale ke kene di-shares and then ha hona ntho e ke tholang, ke thola di-dividends ke a di thola, but hore ke thole something e bonahalang ha ke bone, so ha ke tsebe hore re ya kae.
Okay, let's deal with the next question. That's the last question.
A last question, Chair, from Katharina Stembison Dlovu.
My question is based on information that we received from Mr. Tabiso. There is any time frame in terms of paying out the dividends? Because I understand he told us if after everything paid, whatever debt, we are going to get the money. So when is gonna be any time frame for those first shares? Another one is that one like education. The lady told us in terms of critical skill, and then we can able to apply that. There is any age or maybe how to go about it. So then we can inform our siblings.
That's all the questions, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to deal with the first one on the debt structure. Nonku, who do you suggest?
Thank you,
Oh,
Chair.
yeah.
So in terms of the conversion of Solby 1, it will happen as soon as the debt is paid off in essence. So if the debt is paid off prior to 2028, then those shares, your Khanyisa shares will roll up into Solby 1, dependent on obviously again the value that is value that is created at that point. And then in terms of the time frame of the shares, again, that relates to when the debt is settled. The sooner that is settled, the better, obviously. And then again, value will then dictate how many Solby 1 shares you get at the end of the transaction. Thank you. I think those are any questions.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. And then the next one, which is a meaty one, talks to, again, the just transition and the associated costs. So I know we have dealt with elements of it earlier, but the gentleman wanted to know what the impact of the carbon tax is on the whole just transition journey.
Thank you. I didn't see him in the audience anymore. The carbon tax is linked, how much carbon tax you pay every year is linked to how much your emissions are from your sites. Now note that we only pay carbon tax in South Africa. We actually don't pay carbon tax in any of our other global operations. But we've paid roughly about anything from 1 billion rand per year, and last year's most recent payment was 1.7 billion rand. Now that is linked to the number of emissions that you emit from your sites in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So last year we did see an increase in our production profile from previous years, and hence why we paid more in terms of carbon tax. The big uncertainty on carbon tax relates to how the tax and the bill changes and what those headline rates increase from 2025 going forward. And that is the point that Mr. Kachler made earlier in terms of the carbon tax uncertainty. But today we still pay anything between 1 and 1.7 billion rand per year in carbon tax. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last one is a combination about the dividend. And I think what is concerning to people is that you're getting a small dividend depending on your shareholding, because the dividend is not the same. It depends on the number of shares you are having, or what your stake is, obviously in Sasol Khanyisa or in Solby shares. That informs the amount of dividends you get. Now, I think that the ladies that raised it are concerned that they don't have anything to prove they have shares. They are getting the dividend. So I would say again, please go to JSE Investor Services. It's those gentlemen and ladies, I think, who are seated there with computers in black suits. They will update your information so that you start getting formal communication on what your shareholding is, or get formal notification on what your relationship with the company is. Because I can appreciate you getting a dividend, but you don't have context to it. So please go to them and let them update your information. And do it today. Don't postpone it beyond today. I think that concludes our question and answer session. Is there anything else from my colleagues up here? Nontando?
There was a question relating to what age do we do bridge to skills?
What age do we do critical skills?
They wanted to understand from your bridge to skills program, at what age do people qualify for the program? That was the last question.
To enter or be part of our Bridge to Work program, you need to be at least 18 years of age. Thanks.
Thank you. That concludes our question and answer. I think it was vigorous and robust, and thank you very much for that. I take it you have done the necessary by casting your vote. And do we see the results of the voting on the screen? And the results indicate that all the resolutions have passed. As we draw to a close, we sincerely thank you for your continued support, confidence, and trust, and for attending our 6th annual general meeting. Rest assured that we want this Sasol Khanyisa transaction to be successful, sustainable, and value accretive. I would like to remind shareholders to immediately advise JSE Investor Services should your contact details or banking details have changed. I think that's so important because some of the questions that arose can be resolved by JSE Investor Services today. This is to ensure that we can communicate with you and process any dividends. Should you not have received any payments, please contact JSE Investor Services so that they can do all the necessary updates of your information. As I suggested to you earlier on, and I've repeated so many times, they are at the back, so if you are present, please avail yourself. If you are online, their contact details are in the annual report. I also call upon you that if you know of any family members, friends, or neighbors that need to update their information, please share this information with them so that they can also do the same, because next time they will want to attend and they'll be confronted with the same dilemma. So it is best you play the role of also sharing this information with anybody else in your community who may also be Sasol Khanyisa public shareholders. And lastly, please ensure that you hand in your voting keypads and translation handsets and receivers before you exit the room. All those gadgets, please do hand them in to our colleagues here at Sasol. From the directors and me, we thank you for your attendance and vigorous participation. Travel safely and remain healthy, and we look forward to all of you at next year's annual general meeting. And a big reminder, please visit the Sasol Impact desk or stand, and also the ESD stand. They have lots of information that can clarify some of your burning questions that you may not have raised today. And with that said, I declare this meeting closed.